Part 1, Shadows in the Streets. Larkenfall still smelled of dragonfire, not the acrid, blistering heat of the Sovereign's flame that had burned itself out in a single dreadful night, but a clinging ash stink woven into the stones, the gutters, the bones of the city. The streets were clean, or at least as clean as they ever managed in a city whose veins ran with sewage and wine. But when the wind shifted, smoke seemed to curl again from the roofs, and memory alone was enough to send children clutching their mothers' skirts. The city lived. It always did. It grew over wounds the way moss grew over graves, but the scars remained. Captain Isaac Var leaned on the railing of the watch barracks, looking down at the morning crowd in the square below. The bells had only just finished tolling first light, but already merchants were spreading cloth on battered stalls, beggars arranging their saws for display, guildsmen striding about in coats that shouted wealth. Life clattered on as though fire had not licked its teeth across the city, as though the Sovereign had not once claimed the sky above their heads. It should have comforted him. Instead, it made him feel tired. He lit a thin, bitter roll of tobacco, drew deep, and let the smoke burn his lungs. His hands shook. He hated that. They hadn't trembled when he faced the beast. But now, with nothing in front of him but life, they shook like a drunk denied his bottle. Behind him the yard clattered awake. The watch was larger now. That was the Chancellor's decree. When the Sovereign had fallen, the city's council had realised, with their usual swiftness and cowardice, that law was useful after all. The watch, long left to rot, had been fed new coin and new bodies, and new kinds of bodies. Boots pounded on cobbles as the recruits drilled. Some of them still carried the sense of their people, cold stone and snow for the dwarf, raw earth and granite for the troll, musk and forest for the woman with eyes too golden to be natural. Outsiders, brought in under the banner of unity. A joke, Var thought. The guilds still spat at the watch, and the watch spat back. But the Chancellor had ordered it, and the watch had obeyed. At the centre of the yard stood Keric Stoneborn, the boy the dwarves had raised. His armour was polished brighter than the morning, his back straighter than a spear, his voice cutting through the mist with iron certainty as he barked instructions to the recruits.
Left foot, Dorn. The other left. That's your knee, not your elbow.
The men laughed. Even Dorn, who outweighed most men and looked like he'd been carved out of siege rock, laughed. They listened to Keric, even the old hands. Var had once dismissed the boy as an overeager fool. He wasn't so sure anymore. The bell in the Tower of Ash tolled again, this time not for prayer, for blood. The sound was low and grim, each strike spaced like the heartbeat of a corpse. Somewhere in the city, someone had died badly. Var ground out his smoke, his hand no longer trembled.
Stoneborn!
His voice carried like a whip crack.
With me. Now.
The alley stank of rain and copper. The body lay sprawled against a wall, throat opened from ear to ear. Blood had painted its story across the stones. A sudden fall, a struggle cut short. A message. But it wasn't the wound that stopped Var cold. It was the shape carved into the wall above the corpse, burned into the mortar as if by fire. Not a sigil he knew, not a guild mark, not a thief's warning. Something older, a spiral of ash. Var felt the scar on his arm, the one the Sovereign had left, throb as though it recognised the pattern. The watch clustered behind him. Keric knelt by the corpse, his jaw set, his lips moving silently as if speaking a prayer. Nibs coughed behind his hand and looked anywhere but at the blood. Dawn stood with arms folded like a wall, and the woman, her name was Lyra, though Var hadn't quite trusted her enough to use it, crouched low, her nostrils flaring like a hunting beast's.
Not a robbery.
Keric said at last.
No purse taken, no weapon left behind.
It's a warning.
Var said. His voice was low, gravelly.
Someone wants us to know. Wants the city to know.
Know what?
Nibs muttered.
That the Sovereign was never the worst thing that could stalk our streets.
Var said. He touched the spiral. It was still warm. Lyra's voice cut the silence, soft but edged.
This was no blade, no claw. The wound is too clean, too absolute.
Var turned.
What then?
She met his gaze. Her pupils were thin, animal slit.
Something new.
That night, as the city choked itself with drink and celebration to forget the morning's corpse, Captain Var sat alone in his office with the shutters drawn and the lamp guttering low. The city had faced a dragon and lived. But men were always cleverer monsters, and now, somewhere in the alleys, a new weapon hunted, one that could kill not by fire, but by will. Var poured himself a measure of something strong, stared into its depths and whispered to no one.
The sovereign was fire, but this will be worse.
The rain started as a smear across the slate and turned, with evening's patience, into a steady, close-fingered drumming that herded citizens into doorways and taverns. Larkenfall always looked honest in the rain. It showed you what the stone was made of. Captain Izek Var didn't bother with a cloak. He let the wet soak him to the bone. It made him feel present, anchored, and it dimmed the thirst that gnawed at the back of his tongue. They'd burned the body by noon, guild rules, priestly injunctions, civic necessity. But the spiral of ash on the wall had not washed away. The rain made it glisten, thin as a bruise.
Not pigment,
Lyra said. Her hood was up. Droplets threaded from the point of her nose to fall between her boots.
It's baked into the mortar. Heat without flame. Alchemy?
Var said.
Not any I recognize,
She said. Her eyes tracked upward, then left, then down, measuring invisible currents. Lyra's gaze made men uneasy. You always had the sense she could see more than you brought to a room.
There's a taste in the air. Bitter metal. Ancient.
Ancient's just a word for someone else's madness,
Nibs muttered, hugging himself. The little corporal's hat was pulled low. Rain gathered at the brim, then threw itself off as though it had changed its mind about living.
Stoneborn,
Var said. Names. Kerrick had been door-knocking since noon, the way a plough goes through an exhausted field. Steady, methodical, unstoppable. He stepped from the alley's mouth, a ledger tucked under one arm, the other hand braced on the hilt of his sword because the habit made him feel whole.
Victim is Master Hevron Pole,
He said.
cloth factor, registered to the Ledger Guild. 16 apprentices, 3 journeymen, a wife, no children. Paid a tithe to the honest traders and another to the Vale. The neighbors say he walked home alone at dawn, drunk and singing.
the city's anthem.
Nib said dryly.
The part about roses.
Kerrick said.
We found a ribbon snagged on a nail farther up the lane. It's embroidered with a harlequin mask.
Var's head came up.
the Painted Order?
The same.
Kerrick said. There were more respectable guilds to tangle with, and wiser ones to leave alone entirely. The Painted Order sat somewhere in the middle, a carnival stitched to a creed. In daylight they threw buckets of confetti, sold sugared nuts, and swallowed swords for the coin of gawking children. At night they didn't so much put the face paints away as change the palette. The Order called it a philosophy, joy as a weapon, laughter as leverage. Larkenfall called it extortion in technicolor. They had rules. They all had rules, but paint hides more than it reveals,
Any reason a cloth factor would have business with jesters?
Var said.
Ribbons.
Nib said.
Their tax is mirth licensure, and a cart of colored silk every festival quarter. Everyone pays someone for something.
Var looked at the spiral again. The rain crawled over it like silver insects. A dead clothier with a clown's ribbon under a mark that bit the wall from within.
Bring the Order's prelate,
He said.
quietly, and bring him to me, not to the yard.
Kerrick nodded.
Where?
Var squinted through the rain toward the rooftops.
Where else? The theater.
The Marrow was the Painted Order's house, lopsided, gaslit, demure as a hangman's smile. The entrance was a mouth under an awning, and the posters peeling from the brick showed men and women whose eyes were coins and whose smiles were knives. The rain tamped down the crowds to a single column of faithfuls with umbrellas speckled like fungi. The usher at the door had tears painted on, which seemed either honest or professional.
We're closed for rehearsal.
the usher sang when Var showed him the badge.
We'll be closed for longer.
Var said. They were given a private box because the city had a sense of humour, and the Order had a sense of occasion. The stage below was a fever dream of ladders, red drapery and a wooden moon. 2 acrobats moved like thoughts across a line. A fiddler sawed up an argument no one could win. Off stage, a drum muttered to itself. The prelate of the Painted Order arrived with a smell of talc and old perfume. He was tall and handsome in the way marble is handsome, a face that looked carved, a gaze that took the measure of a room and then the measure of the men in it. He wore half a mask, white with a single high black teardrop.
Captain Var,
He said.
the city's ash-stained conscience. To what do we owe the pleasure? If it is about the tax on ribbon, we have already.
A man is dead.
Var said.
Hevron Pole. Cloth factor. A harlequin ribbon outside the place he bled.
The prelate tilted his head in the way cats do when they're about to be cruel.
We sell ribbons.
He said.
We sell laughter. We do not sell knives.
Everyone sells knives.
Nib said.
Some of you call them jokes.
Others call them taxes,
The prelate said mildly.
and some call them God. We are, in the main, small sinners, Captain.
Var didn't sit,
Who carries your mark on a ribbon?
he said.
Those who have joined the Order.
The prelate said.
Artists, apprentices, patrons, lovers, those we wish to remember.
Get me a list.
Var said.
Names, dates, addresses.
The prelate looked embarrassed for him.
Captain,
He said gently.
we are an order, not a registry. We make masks for a reason.
Then make me one.
Var said.
One that looks like obedience.
The prelate's eyes warmed a degree.
There's a show at 7th Bell.
He said.
Bring flowers. And consider that sometimes a ribbon is just a ribbon.
Sometimes a ribbon is a leash.
Var said.
That is for the wearer to decide.
The prelate murmured, and slid back into the fly of curtains like a ghost into smoke.
Polite bastard.
Nib said.
All of them are. They act like gravity doesn't apply to their faces.
Kerrick had been watching the stage, tracking angles, exits, the ways a man could climb and fall.
They're not wrong about masks.
He said.
They let you believe you can be anything.
They let you be something you're not.
Var said.
Is that worse?
Kerrick said. Var didn't answer. He'd worn a mask once, the bottom of a bottle. It had let him be a man who didn't dream. Below, the drum stuttered. The line twanged. One of the acrobats overreached, swung, caught, and hung, every muscle in his body pleading, every finger white with wanting. The whole house inhaled and held its breath, and then he climbed again, the way a man scrapes his way up out of a nightmare.
Let's go.
Var said.
We've a guild to annoy and a dead man to unbury.
The dead man unburied himself at dusk in the sense that another corpse appeared, and this one came with a crowd and a story. The Painted Order had a second house, the kind that showed its bones, a plank stage under a storm-stripped awning, a ring of cheap stools, a tin bucket for the coins. The woman who called herself Primrose was the sort of clown who painted sorrow so thoroughly it became an insult to the world. Children adored her. Their parents gave her a wide berth for reasons they couldn't articulate. Now she lay under a torn banner, her costume dark where it should have been bright, her painted tears cut through by real ones that had tracked through the powder as she died. The spiral of ash burned into the boards by her hip looked obscene. It shared the stage with a slapstick, 3 broken hoops, and a toppled stool. A boy, no more than 12, smeared with grease paint gone muddy in the rain, was kneeling beside her, his hands fluttering over her wrists the way hands do when there should be a pulse and isn't.
She said the joke was old.
He said to no one, his voice small and broken.
She said they wouldn't laugh unless she bled.
Out.
Var said to the onlookers, because there are moments when the city must be denied its feast. The boy didn't move. Kerrick crouched, lowered his voice to the wooden steady register dwarves used to talk to avalanches.
What's your name?
Jep,
the boy said.
Jep Merritt. I carry the hoops.
Did you see who did this, Jep?
Kerrick said. The boy's eyes were yellowed with shock.
No. We were between sketches. She said she needed air. The rain had stopped. She stepped out and then I heard...
He swallowed. His jaw worked before the words would come.
I heard a crack. Not like thunder. Like a plank splitting in a dry house. She was on the boards when I got there. It was still smoking. I pulled at her musk, and she told me to stop. She said it wasn't ready. She said...
His hands flew to his own mouth as if to keep the last of her words from escaping. Lyra looked at Var.
Same scent,
She said.
same metal on the tongue. There's another thread. Something older. Something cold.
She sniffed again, her nostrils narrowing.
And salt. Tears, yes. But sea salt.
We're 100 miles from the sea.
Nib said.
The sea isn't just water.
Lyra said. Kerrick stood.
Primrose is order,
He said.
and this was deliberate. It ties to Heverin Pole by intent.
Var stared at the spiral, measuring the gap between two lines that never touched.
This is a message in a language I don't speak.
He said softly.
We'll find the scribe.
Nibs made a face.
And what if the scribe is writing from a long way away?
Then we make the world smaller.
Var said. He straightened, felt the wet weight of the night on his shoulders, and turned to the boy.
Jep,
He said.
You'll come with us. We'll keep you safe. And you will tell me every story Primrose ever told the Order that made someone rich or angry. Jep,
Nodded. The kind of nod that belongs to people who haven't yet learned that the city ignores both vows and prayers.
Stoneborn,
Var said.
close the Order's houses. Send word to the Chancellor. The Watch investigates 2 murders with a common mark, and send a runner to the Ledger Guild for whatever they have on Heverin Pole's enemies.
Everyone.
Nib said.
Yes,
Var said.
but start with the ones who think they're too important to be on any list.
The Chancellor's palace had never looked like a palace. It looked like a siege engine that had decided to grow sideways. Its face was all arrow slits and shadow, and the guards wore expressions that suggested that they would not mind an incident as long as it involved other people. Var hated going there. You went in a supplicant and came out a tool even if you thought you were the handle. Larkenfall's Chancellor had the good manners to meet him in the long room, rather than the raised chamber. It was a concession Var didn't trust. The long room was wood-panelled and warm, with maps under glass and a fire that behaved itself. The raised chamber was stone and draughty, and made men feel small. The Chancellor was a tall, spare man with a face like an ink stroke and hands that never stopped moving. When he smiled, his mouth did it, but his eyes didn't. Somebody had taught him that a city was a chessboard, and people were pieces. He'd taken away the wrong lesson and won.
Captain Var,
He said.
I hear you have found modernity.
We found a mark,
Var said.
twice, burned into stone, burned into wood. The kills are too clean. This is a device, Chancellor, a new thing, or an old one who remembers how.
New things frighten old stones.
The Chancellor said. He steepled his fingers and tapped his thumbs together.
What do you need?
That would be a first.
Var said. The Chancellor's almost smile twitched wider.
Indulge me.
Permission to offend people in order.
Var said.
A list of those who might profit from unrest between guilds. Access to the Tower's records on forbidden artifices.
Ah,
The Chancellor said.
you have been talking to the university.
No,
Var said.
I've been talking to bodies.
The Chancellor rose and walked to the window. Beyond it, the city spread out like a disease one learned to live with,
The Tower's records are sealed for a reason.
he said.
Knowledge isn't a stream. It's a reservoir. If you chip the stone, you drown.
Tell that to the murdered.
Var said.
They've already swallowed.
The silence stretched, then snapped,
You'll have a clerk
the Chancellor said.
in the morning. He will open what you ask and close what you must not see. As for the guild list,
He waved a hand, delicate as calligraphy.
Start with the Veil. Their leadership has been anxious since the dragon changed the sky. The honest traders have been acquisitive. The Painted Order has been louder than usual, and the university has been very quiet.
He looked over his shoulder.
When men who make noise fall silent, it is either wisdom or conspiracy. We breed little of the former.
That's nearly helpful.
Var said.
Captain,
The Chancellor said lightly.
you live on nearly.
Var turned to go, then paused.
Have you seen this?
He sketched the spiral with 2 fingers on the Chancellor's desk, a quick spare motion that made the ink bottles rattle.
Does it mean anything to the tower?
The Chancellor watched the spiraling motion in the air the way a snake watches a charm.
Everything means something to the tower.
He said.
That is why it keeps its doors closed. Come at dawn. Bring Stoneborn. Leave the wolf girl outside.
Her name is Lyra.
Var said.
Names are masks.
The Chancellor said.
Good night.
Back in the yard, the rain turned to a silver mist that kept company with the lamps. Dawn, who had gone silent at the Painted Order and stayed that way for the walk home, leaned his back against the barracks wall and sank until his knees came up to his chest. When a troll makes himself small, the night feels obliged to grow. Kerrick stood in the doorway long enough that Lyra noticed.
You should sleep.
She said.
So should you.
He said. Lyra's smile showed a flash of canine that might have been accidental.
I don't sleep like men do.
She said.
I patrol. I mend. I listen to what the darkness tells itself.
What is the darkness telling itself?
Kerrick said.
That the rain makes it brave,
She said.
and that something new is tasting the city, and has no learned fear of its teeth.
Kerrick looked out into the square. The wet cobbles held the lamplight without keeping any of it. He felt the familiar double pull in his chest. The iron laws the dwarves had poured into him, and the warmer, messier laws Larkenfall wrote for itself every hour. He wanted to be equal to both, and knew he wasn't, and still wanted to be.
You and Dorn,
He said without looking at her.
are you all right?
Lyra's head tilted.
Because I am not human, and he is not human.
Because the city is.
Kerrick said.
And it forgets we are the ones holding it up.
She followed his gaze.
Dorn will keep.
She said.
He is stone. Stones crack when they are alone. He is not alone.
Kerrick nodded and went to check the cells, because that was the sort of small thing that kept him from thinking too long about large ones. Var watched from his office window, the shutters cracked just enough to let him worry and weather. He had the Chancellor's sarcasm in his pocket and 2 corpses in his head. He also had a letter on his desk written in a hand that smelled faintly of smoke and gardens. He didn't pick it up. He had picked it up too many times already, and it still said the same thing. Eat, sleep. Remember you are a man and not a broom sweeping up after fire. He dragged a hand across his face. The scar on his forearm pulsed once, as if it remembered the shape his arm had been when the Sovereign's breath had almost remade him. Captain? Nib stood in the doorway, hat in his hands.
We've got another problem. Possibly a small one that wants to be big.
Say it.
Var said.
The honest traders.
Nib said and rolled his eyes in a long-suffering circle.
They don't like that we spoke to the Painted Order without kissing their ring. They're filing a complaint. Also the Veil. Also the Ledger Guild, who want to know why the dead cloth man isn't paying his membership dues. And dash.
He hesitated.
And?
Var said.
There's word in the taverns.
Nib said.
A whisper that the city's watch has teeth again, and someone intends to break them. 2 constables were pushed down a stair in Meyer Lane. One of them's all right. The other dash.
He shrugged.
He'll weather it. But the message was clear.
Messages are clearer when you send them back.
Var said.
Put 2 men on Meyer Lane who enjoy stairs. Quiet, but not gentle. If someone reaches for a constable, I want their wrist on my desk.
Nibs's grin was a small dark lantern.
Yes, Captain.
He left. Var went back to the window, to the rain, to the square, to the city that took men's oaths and melted them down. This is how it begins, he thought. Not with a roar, with a crack like dry wood, with a spiral on the wall, with a clown who bled in the rain, with a boy who thought laughter could force back the dark, with a device that kills without flame. He said it aloud to the empty room because some truths balk unless named.
There's a weapon in my city.
And because he was a man who refused to pray to gods who answered late, he said the rest.
I'll find it. And when I do, I will make the hands that raised it remember heat.
Dawn found the Tower of Ash shouldering the clouds like a spear. The fog kept its distance from the stone, as if the stone had opinions about it. The clerk the Chancellor had promised was waiting at the door, wrapped in a robe the colour of moths. He had a mouth like a paper cut and a habit of blinking as though every new person were a surprising sentence.
Master Fennel, at your disposal,
he said without sounding disposed to anything.
This way. Don't touch anything that looks like a book, unless I say you may. Also, don't touch anything that doesn't look like a book, especially if it looks like a mirror.
Var and Kerrick followed him into a library that had outgrown the concept of rooms and had settled for districts. The air was dry and tasted faintly of dust, old glue, and ideas.
We have catalogued devices, made and unmade,
Fennel said.
We have a room for things that should not have been, and a room for things that will be no more, and another for the overlap. What, precisely, are you looking for, Captain?
A weapon that writes a spiral into stone,
Var said.
That kills without flame and without a blade. It announces itself. It hums in the bones, and the air tastes of metal when it is done.
Fennel stopped. One eyelid ticked as if trying to flip a page by itself.
That's not a weapon,
he said.
That's a heresy.
Var's smile was a thin, tired thing.
In this city,
he said,
those are synonyms.
Fennel pursed his lips, decided against an argument, and led them down a stair into the catalogued dark. The stairwell was narrow and unkind, its stones polished not by cleaning, but by centuries of hands that had slipped, clawed, or prayed their way down. Captain Var walked with one palm against the wall, cigarette stub clenched unlit between his teeth, eyes adjusting to the dim. Kerrick followed, his boots ringing on the steps like verdicts. Clerk Fennel carried a lantern with a flame so thin it looked afraid.
The tower is not a vault,
Fennel said, his voice a whisper as though the stone itself might be listening.
It is a memory, and memories are dangerous when they are complete.
Spare me the poetry,
Var growled.
Show me the things that kill.
Fennel flinched but obeyed. At the foot of the stair, an archway yawned into a hall lined with shelves too heavy to move and too tall to read without a ladder. Each shelf was locked with chains of iron etched with runes. Behind the bars lay objects swaddled in waxed cloths, shapes that hinted at crowns, blades, coils of wire, bottles sealed with crimson wax. The air pressed close, thick with dust that carried the bitter tang of old blood.
This wing is dedicated to artifices of violence,
Fennel said.
Some are tools that burned their wielders. Some are experiments abandoned. All are abominations.
Good,
Var muttered it.
We're in the right place.
Kerrick stepped closer to one case. A length of blackened wood lay inside, carved with runes so deep they seemed to swallow the light. The copper rod ran its length, ending in a mouth like a trumpet's, sealed with wax.
What's that?
Kerrick asked.
Don't point,
Fennel hissed.
It's called a throat stick. When spoken into, it magnifies the voice into a weapon. Men who tried it found their lungs burned to ash. It killed its inventors before it could be used in war.
Kerrick's eyes narrowed.
It looks wrong.
It is wrong,
Fennel said. Var grunted, tapping the glass with a knuckle.
We're not here for curiosities. Has anything in here killed without fire, without blade?
Fennel's expression pinched further. He turned and gestured them onward. They came to a shelf set apart, wrapped in iron bands thicker than a man's wrist. Behind the bars sat nothing but a scrap of parchment pinned beneath glass. On it, a spiral had been inked, the same shape burned into the corpse's walls and boards. Carrick froze, his jaw set, his hand tightening on his sword hilt.
That's it.
The mark seemed to shift when they stared at it, the lines pulling their eyes inward until the spiral felt like a mouth. Var spat out his cigarette stub.
Talk?
Fennel licked his lips.
It is called the Ashborn Relic. Or rather, the notes of it. The device itself is gone. Lost, they told us. Perhaps destroyed.
Describe it?
Var said. Fennel's whisper shrank smaller.
A staff. Not wood. Not metal. Forged from bone turned to stone. Carved hollow. With veins of alchemy running its length. When aimed, it spoke death. Not fire. Not arrow. A sound. A crack that tore the air itself. A line of force that could kill from afar. The wielder needed no skill. Only will. And the will grew twisted.
Twisted?
Carrick asked. The relic did not merely answer its bearer. It whispered. It suggested. It wanted to be used. Fennel's fingers shook as he clutched his lantern.
Those who carried it became consumed. They killed not from need, but from the thrill of it. One strike was never enough. The relic demanded more.
Var's face darkened.
You're telling me there's a thing in my city that turns men into killers for sport?
Yes,
Fennel said. His lips cracked into a nervous smile.
if it still exists. Many say it was dismantled, scattered, that the Chancellor's predecessors saw the danger and...
Many say.
Var cut him off.
Bodies in my streets say otherwise.
The spiral seemed to pulse in the lamplight. Carrick felt a tremor crawl along his arm, the memory of his pike steadying him.
We can't let this thing stay loose.
He said. No, Var agreed.
But we'll need to know who found it, who's using it, and why they want the whole city to see their mark.
They emerged into daylight pale and squinting, the fog burning away under a grudging sun. Carrick filled his lungs, grateful for air that didn't smell like bone dust.
What now?
He asked. Var lit a cigarette with a hand that didn't shake anymore.
Now we find the bodies before they hit the ground. Someone's testing their toy, and they won't stop until we break their hands.
That night, another body fell. A guildsman of the honest traders this time struck down on the steps of his counting house. His chest was punched through, ribs shattered outward as though by some invisible hammer. No knife, no fire, only the spiral scorched into the doorframe. Citizens whispered in taverns, fear brewing like mould in damp corners. Dragons had been terrible, yes, but dragons were monsters, not men. Now the streets themselves seemed to stalk them. The watch worked till dawn, marking maps, chasing shadows, finding nothing but the echo of that sound. Crack, like dry wood splitting, like the birth of something hungry. The counting house wore its blood like varnish, a thin, tacky gleam across the marble steps that would never come fully clean, no matter how dutiful the scrubbing. Lanterns swung on iron crooks, their wavering light fattening the shadows and making the stepped street look like the backbone of some enormous sleeping beast. Captain Var stood just beyond the cordon, teeth worrying one corner of his lip. He didn't smoke here. Too many flames already. Carrick knelt by the body, one knee grinding in grit. The guildsman's coat, waterproof waxed cotton, wealth stitched into the hem, had been torn open by the invisible blow. The flight of ribs bowed outward. Soot-black scorch ran in a thumb-wide ribbon across the wound. No powder burn, no blade, no entry hole. Just destruction, like a fist had reached unseen into the chest and crushed the man's heart against the world. He looked up at Lyra.
You found him?
I heard him.
Her voice was flat, as if the words wanted to shake, but she refused to let them.
I was shadowing the guild doors like you told me. He came out talking to himself, counting coins he hadn't been paid yet. Then there was that crack, like the sky being split. He made a sound like a dog that swallowed a bone. Then he fell. See anyone?
Var asked, not looking at her, eyes fixed on the scorched line like it might suddenly tell the truth in a new dialect.
I saw hats moving in the fog below.
Lyra said.
Hats move. Faces don't. That's a thing about the city.
Spirals on the frame.
Dawn called from the doorway. He stood 6 paces up beside the fanged shadow of the lintel. His voice had the grating authority of old rope. He pointed with a gloved finger. The mark was smaller this time, etched sharp with something hot enough to bite wood without flame.
Cleaner work than the first 2. Practiced.
Practiced.
Var repeated softly. He waved a constable over.
Bag the splinters. Bag the blood. Bag the dust.
Carrick glanced up.
Dust?
The constable froze halfway to obedience.
There's no dust here, sir?
There's always dust.
Var said.
In a city like ours, dust is the only thing that's honest. Bag some.
The constable, not understanding, did what he was told. That would have to be enough. The crowd watched for a while longer, and then, when no miracle reversed the death, it did what crowds do. Spread the story in thin layers across the city until every alley heard a slightly different version. The older men made sure the younger ones saw the body. The younger men pretended they weren't looking and studied the mark instead, because fear looks like curiosity if you want to keep your pride. Lyra drifted down the steps and breathed at the spiral, close enough to taste the char.
They want this scene,
She said.
want it to be a brand. They got it.
Var said, and turned away before his mouth could add something he'd regret. The Honest Traders Guild Hall's antechamber smelled of sanded oak and careful lime wash. Everything was polished, not for beauty, but because polished wood shows proof of care, and care is a kind of currency when your trade is faith and promises. Master Harlan Big, who had risen from booth clerk to guildmaster by never losing a wager he didn't need to make, sat with his hands folded, thumbs pressing, pressing, pressing. His eyelids were 2 pale grubs. He blinked rarely, each blink a measurement.
I hope you appreciate the peril, Captain,
He said, in a tone that made appreciation sound like a debt.
I'm choking on it.
Var said, taking the chair without waiting to be offered.
One of yours is dead. A mark on your door. We think the killer wants to write a sentence, and the city is their shivering paper.
Big's lip did a small, disdainful twitch.
This is not poetry.
Neither is murder,
Var said.
and yet here we sit in verse.
Carrick leaned forward.
Your man, Kandar Hosh, who wanted him dead.
Ah,
Big said softly, like it was the first sensible question. He looked past them at the ledger by the wall, a book so big it seemed to grow from the table like a tree.
Master Hosh oversaw arbitration of a recent dispute. Adhesives. The maker claimed his glue could bind stone to water and hold. The buyer claimed his house washed down river in the first hard rain. Tempers ran high.
Names.
Var said. The clerk to Big's right cleared his throat.
The maker is Kalram Bindari. The buyer is Rual of the Stoneworks.
Stoneworks?
Dawn said. He'd been quiet until now, watching Big with the steady stare of a well-trained dog watching a brat with a knife.
They also lost a bid on the Fountain of Sighs repair. Underbid by a guildless crew who had city backing.
City backing.
Var said. He depleted a smile that hadn't been replenished in years.
The tower's backing.
Big didn't blink.
I would never suggest the tower meddles in contracts.
You'd never say it.
Var said.
Would you suggest it?
Big folded the fuel of his smile and banked it.
I suggest nothing. I state plain truths. The man who died had judgment enemies, but the traders don't kill each other in streets. We use ledgers and fines and bankruptcy.
Some people prefer quicker remedies.
Carrick said. Big's eyes slid to Lyra, measuring.
Your recruit has the smell of alley on her.
Lyra smiled in the way that means the speaker has just stepped to the wrong side of a line.
Not a crown candle of waste from your counting house hasn't run down through my alley at some point,
she said.
We know your trash as well as your coin.
Holland Big adjusted a cuff.
I stand corrected.
Var stood.
Do that more often. We'll want access to your arbitration records. Names who argued with Hosh. Names who seemed happy when he ruled. They're the same names, in my experience.
Clerk Fennel can supply copies.
Big said.
Fennel from the tower?
Carrick said.
Fennel from us.
Big said.
Not every fennel grows on the same rotten cart.
He stood too, out of habit. A man who keeps others always seated grows maimed in the legs.
If the city cannot keep our doors safe, Captain,
he said,
the city may find we keep our doors shut. We can negotiate promises from anywhere.
Try negotiating air,
Var said, walking out.
Tell me how that goes.
By the time they reached the watch house, afternoon had curdled toward night. Pigeons made their dumb gossip in the rafters, and someone in the cells was singing a hymn in a key only used by drunk men and dying cats. In the mess, a half-made stew shivered under a lid, waiting for meat. The 3 new recruits had already claimed their corners of the common room. Lyra with her chair angled just enough to see both doors and the courtyard. Dawn with his back to the wall and his eyes half-lidded like a predator napping. And the dwarf, his name was Aldrin Blackaxe, though the men had started calling him Button for reasons no one would admit to. Sitting in a 2-tall chair, feet not touching the rushes, polishing a hatchet with a care that suggested the hatchet had feelings. A trio of older watchmen had claimed the table nearest the fire. They were talking softly, the way men talk when they think low volume equals decency. The words made it clear it didn't.
Shouldn't have the little ones,
one muttered.
Bad luck. Their women have beards. That's got to tangle fate.
Not a woman,
said another, darkly pleased with his knowledge.
They don't have women. They split like mushrooms. That's why they live so long. Fungus doesn't age.
Aldrin made no sign he heard. That was the trick. Hear every word. Pretend you didn't. File them in a drawer and label it. When I have time. Carrick stepped to their table. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stood, and men who normally stood stayed sitting, because stepping up now would make things shift in ways they weren't sure they could shift back.
You got something to say about my watchman,
he said.
Say it to me.
The third man, the loudest before, found his mouth discovering that it had too many teeth. He moved them around, searching for a sentence that tasted like bravery, but chewed like cowardice.
We were just joking,
he said.
Jokes are things both people laugh at,
Carrick said.
If only one of you is laughing, it's not a joke. It's a warning.
You can't tell me what to laugh at,
the man said, and then wondered why his voice made the sentence sound like, Please do not ask me who I am under my skin. Carrick held the man's eyes until the man had to pick them up and look at them again. Then he turned to Aldrin.
We good?
Aldrin's beard quivered.
I will sing them a mushroom song when they sleep,
he said placidly.
Our folk have a fine repertoire.
Do that,
Carrick said.
And clean the latrines afterwards.
Aldrin grinned.
I will sing to the latrines also.
Var stood in the doorway like a storm that had chosen not to rain, for now.
We have a weapon that kills like a god bored in church,
he said.
And we have guilds crawling over each other to pretend they aren't frightened. Dorn, you're on door watching tonight. Lyra, you walk the river from Locks to the mill and find me the rumor with teeth. Button dash dash.
Aldrin,
the dwarf said mildly.
Button, until you put a nobleman in a sack,
Var said.
Then I'll call you Aldrin. You're with Carrick. We're going to see the Lantern Hounds.
A groan went around the room. The Lantern Hounds were the city's unofficial fire brigade. Smugglers with buckets, thieves with grit. They'd saved more homes than the tower, and stolen more purses than the Thieves' Guild. They loved the city the way a starving dog loves a bone.
Why them?
Carrick asked.
Because they hear what burns,
Var said.
and our killer makes the air itself burn.
The hounds kept an address in a warehouse by the river that had never seen a legal crate. Rope scars burned into the timbers where stolen anchors had hung. Lanterns hung in a row inside the big door, all different makes, all polished bright. In the corner, a tangled dragon of hoses, a pile of bucket ropes, a cart that looked like it would start if you whispered to it kindly and pushed hard. Mags, their captain, had hair a colour that had forgotten whether it had been black or red. Burned scars starred one cheek. She waved them in with hands whose skin had been replaced by callus years ago.
Watch,
She said.
Are we here for handshakes or spitting?
Both,
Var said.
in whatever order you prefer.
Mag smirked.
Meet my lads. The small one with the toothpick is Finn. The bigger one with the stupid grin is Finn. The one who looks like a bucket hit him is also Finn.
Family tradition?
Carrick said.
Mother had a sense of humor.
Mag said.
We strangled it at birth. What can we do for you? Aside from pretending you didn't let the city's heart be fed to a thing that eats hearts.
Var accepted the blow.
You hear odd fire?
He said.
You know which way the wind thinks. Our killer uses something that bites wood without flame, leaves a scorch line like a nail dragged through smoke. Sound like anything you've doused?
Not yet,
Mag said.
but I've heard a sound. Twice this week, like dash dash.
Like a tree splitting in frost.
Carrick offered.
Like a promise snapping.
Mag said slow.
Heard it once near the old bell foundry. Once near Tallow Market. Both times, followed by silence that wasn't a silence. The city was listening to itself to see if it had been hurt.
Old Bell Foundry's empty.
Var said. Mag shook her head.
Empty buildings are never empty. They're full of people who don't belong anywhere else.
Carrick nodded.
We'll look. And the tallow market?
Full of tallow.
Mag said dryly.
And men who pretend tallow is all they sell.
Who runs your rumor ledger?
Var asked.
That'd be me.
Said a voice from the rafters. A boy unfurled from the shadows like a rope being thrown. He landed with the grace of someone who'd traded falling for a living.
Name's Linnet. I keep track of things. For payment.
What's a rumor worth this week?
Carrick asked.
Depends.
Linnet said.
If it'll save a life, it's free. If it'll save a purse, it costs double.
Var's mouth twitched.
We're buying life.
Then I'll consider you in credit.
Linnet said, and stuck out his hand. It was grubby and honest. Var shook it, which meant something even in a city that traded in handshakes.
You hear of a man testing something?
Carrick asked.
Not killing, practicing. On walls, on trees, on rats.
Walls don't scream,
Linnet said.
but yes. There's a door near the bone pit with the spiral burned in it. Not dramatic. Small, like someone was learning how to draw their name.
Show us.
Var said. The bone pit wasn't called that because it held bones. It held fat. Mutton tallow scraped from carcasses, boiled and drained in vats. The bones had been sold long ago to glue men and charm sellers and dwarf forgers that could make a sword edge sharp enough to split daylight. The door was a mean little portal in a mean little wall, half buried in trash and tallow drips the colour of old teeth. The spiral burned into the plank was no bigger than a coin, but it was clean, razor edges, the lines etched in one smooth motion.
Closer.
Linnet said. He pointed at a notch in the stone to the right.
Bits got stuck here.
Carrick knelt. Inside the notch something rattled. Tiny fragments of not wood, not metal. He eased a shard out with a knife tip. It flaked like chalk. He pressed it between finger and thumb. It left a smear like bone dust. He said nothing, but when he looked at Var, the captain's eyes said, yes, the tower's lies had been lies of omission, the worst kind.
Fennel said the relic was bone turned to stone.
Carrick murmured.
Hollow, veined. What if the shot is bone as well? Ground fine, hung in air, driven forward by a sound.
Bone kills bone.
Var said.
Tidy, if you're the sort who likes poetry.
Linnet picked up a flake and sniffed it, because he was of the age that thinks learning is edible.
Smells like old tinder,
He said.
and a little like rain.
They were all quiet for a moment. Sometimes the city hands you a truth so gently you almost don't feel the bruise it leaves.
Who else knows this door?
Var asked.
No.
One who likes their hands, Linnet said.
If the tallow men catch you near their bones, they'll make you swim in fat.
Then they'll need a new pool if they get in our way.
Var said.
Linnet, you see anything, you tell Mags. Mags tells us. We'll make the payment later.
What's later?
Linnet asked.
Not now,
Var said.
which is all later needs to be.
On their way back, the fog came in steps, like a man trying to walk quietly down a creaking stair. Lanterns bloomed like rotten fruit. The river's voice deepened. At the bend near the bell foundry, Lyra peeled away with a nod, ghosting along the water's lip. Dawn went up to the roofs. His shadow moved like a shutter. Carrick and Aldrin took the street toward the mill gate, because the mill gate never slept, and neither did Trouble. They didn't need to go far. Trouble came to meet them, in the form of a boy in a chalk-stained coat, running like he'd learned today how to run and wanted to show off. He all but crashed into Carrick, words spilling out of him like pearls from a torn bag.
Captain, sir, watchman, sir. There's a man on the bridge. He's pointing a tree at people.
Slow.
Carrick said, hands on the boy's shoulders.
Pointing a what?
A long thing,
Boy said, spreading his hands.
like a broom with no brush. He holds it like this.
The boy mimed, shouldering a staff, eye to a line that wasn't there. Aldrin's eyes flat fixed.
Show us.
They ran. The boy led. The bridge's arch rose ahead, the stones slick with moss, and the simple certainty that men will always cross water where they shouldn't. From halfway up the span came a sound like laughter that hurt. Crack! Carrick felt it in his teeth. Screams peeled back from the top of the bridge like bark from a struck tree. There wasn't time to think about tactics. There wasn't enough bridge for tact.
Left.
Carrick said. Aldrin went right. They climbed the last steps low and fast. The first thing Carrick saw on the crown of the bridge was a hat. No, the absence of a hat. The hat having been removed by something that had taken the skull with it. The second thing he saw was the wielder. The killer was unremarkable. That was the common genius of evil. It chose ordinary faces and let the bruise bloom slowly, so no one noticed the first yellow smudge. He wore a coat fit for any street, a scarf around his throat, a cap with a peak. But in his hands, balanced gently across his shoulder like a fisherman checks his line, was a rod. Not wood, not iron. Something pale that drank the light. Veins ran along it, dark as dried blood. At one end, a mouth, wide and ringed like the rim of a horn. At the other end, a curl of sigils that writhed when looked at too long. He swung the mouth toward the panicked, pressed knot of citizens at the far parapet. His cheek rested along the stock with obscene tenderness. The spiral mark had been cut into the bridgestone under his boots. He had made a place to stand that belonged to him.
Drop it,
Carrick said, the two words surprising him by obeying his orders and leaving his mouth. The man didn't. He glanced, not at Carrick, but at the dwarf ghosting up the right side. Aldrin raised both hands, palms open. His eyes were shards of onyx. Drop it, Carrick said again, because the first time had worked fine.
This city has enough things that kill it. It doesn't need your help.
The man smiled. It was a small, careful smile, not arrogant, satisfied, as though he'd found a new word for himself and tried it on in front of a mirror. I am necessary.
These people don't love their city,
he said. His voice was mild.
They rent it. They borrow it. They wipe their boots on it. I'm teaching them reverence.
By murdering them,
Aldrin said, in a tone you might reserve for correcting a child near a stove. The man's eyes warmed.
Words,
he said distantly.
Such clumsy tools.
He turned the mouth toward a woman clutching a basket to her chest. Her body pressed to the parapet, nowhere to go. Her eyes were full of glass. Carrick moved. He didn't know he had. Movement is a decision the body makes when the mind is too slow to be useful. He crossed the space between him and the killer, as if the air had thickened into something he could push against. He brought the pike haft up, not to strike, but to wedge. The mouth of the Ashborn relic jammed hard against the wood. Crack! Sound tore out sideways. It hit the stone of the parapet and chewed it. Bits of bridge sprayed like gravel. The woman screamed, ducked, lived. Carrick's arms took the blow and went numb to the shoulder. Aldrin launched, small body a hammer, hatchet chopping low at knees. The killer danced back, light on cold feet. The relic swung toward Aldrin, and Carrick felt his throat seize with a terror that would not be dignified later by any name. He slammed his shoulder into the man's midsection. They stumbled, locked together, the weapon between them. The man's breath smelled like tallow smoke and bad coin.
Not yours,
Carrick hissed and threw his weight down. They went down together. The relic's mouth kissed the stone. Crack. Stone became sand in a circle around their faces. Carrick tasted grit become mud on his tongue. The killer rolled free, rising cat-quick, bringing the stock to his shoulder with a lover's skill. He aimed not at Carrick, not at Aldrin, but at the crowd bunched on the steps because some men can only win by making everyone else lose. Something moved above. A shadow fell. Dawn dropped from the parapet like judgment in a black coat, both boots slamming into the killer's back. The shot went high. A gull ceased to be a gull with appalling efficiency. The killer screamed, a human, ordinary sound, and Dawn's hand closed on the relic.
Don't touch it!
Var's voice, from somewhere behind the riot of bodies and noise and fear. He had arrived with 3 constables and a stare that could have turned a flood back upstream. Dawn's fingers were already on the sigil-carved stock. He hissed, hand jerking away as if he'd touched a kettle, eyes suddenly distant, jaw working. He shook his head. When the killer wriggled, Dawn solved the problem by dropping a knee into the man's spine, and the problem stopped wriggling.
Bind him,
Var said.
Bind his fingers separately. Button dash, dash.
Aldrin,
Dwarf said, winding cord around hands like he was lacing a boot.
Aldrin, if he moves, remove something he wants to keep.
Var finished. Carrick pushed up on shaking arms. Noise washed out and washed back in. He was dimly aware of the crowd's sound changing. Not panic, something else. He looked up and realized people were crying, not because they had been saved, but because they had nearly not been, and the body knows the difference. The killer blinked up at the night as if he expected it to blink back.
You don't understand,
he said, voice thick with conviction and the beginnings of fear.
I didn't choose it. It chose me.
Join the club,
Var said without sympathy.
City chooses all of us. Some of us try not to make it regret that.
Var did not look directly at the relic. He stood next to it the way a man stands next to a ditch when he knows someone will push him into it if he leans too far.
We wrap this,
he said.
We take it to the tower.
No,
Dawn said too quickly. Var's gaze clicked to him.
You have something to say, Street Sergeant?
Dawn swallowed. His mouth opened, closed. When he spoke, his voice was careful, like a man feeling his way across rotten planks in the dark.
We take it, yes, but we keep a watchman's hand on it until we know whose hands are waiting. Tower kept this quiet. Quiet breeds maggots.
Agreed,
Var said to Carrick's surprise.
2 watch at all times. Button, you and Dorn.
Aldrin.
Aldrin, you and Dorn will lie with it if you have to. If it whispers, sing louder.
You will not understand its song.
the killer said dreamily. He had begun to smile again, around the pain of his bound wrists.
It's in your bones already. It's in your teeth. It's the city's heartbeat. You'll hear it when you close your eyes.
I hear rats when I close my eyes.
Var said.
And the last man who told me to listen harder ended up telling it to the river.
He crouched.
Who gave it to you?
It found me.
The man said, an edge of cunning over the conviction now, the old dance.
Out by the old stone yards. In the ash. It sings where ash sleeps.
Who showed you how to hold it?
Var asked. The man smiled.
It told me. You don't hold it. It holds you.
Var straightened, an old weariness rolling off him like steam.
Carrick, take him to the cells, quietly. If anyone asks, say we found him with a long stick and a bad idea.
Carrick hauled the man up. He was lighter than he looked, like a bundle of dry reeds.
What's your name?
Carrick asked, not because it mattered to the law, but because it mattered to his sleep.
Micah.
The man said.
Micah Prown. You'll remember me. I'll make sure.
I won't,
Carrick said, because sometimes the smallest cruelty is a kindness, and took him away. The relic lay on the bridge like a piece of a dead god. Var crouched near it, not letting his shadow cross its length. Uldren knelt by the muzzle end, staring into the hollow the way a miner stares into a shaft, wondering how far down is far enough.
Do you hear it?
Uldren asked.
Yes,
Var said.
but I've heard worse. I've heard a nobleman explain why a dead child was the city's fault, not his carriage's. I've heard men say it was only once, to graves. Compared to that, this is only a tune.
It's a hungry tune,
Uldren said.
All the good ones are.
Var said.
Wrap it.
They did. They wrapped it in the treated leather the hounds had given them, and then in a blanket Thorn had stolen from a lord with small dogs, and then in a coil of rope that had known better crimes. They lifted it together, 3 men and a dwarf, because it felt wrong to let one man carry it, the way it feels wrong to let one man carry grief.
Tower won't like this,
Dawn said.
Tower didn't like dragons.
Var said.
Look how that turned out.
They moved off the bridge like pallbearers. Lyra joined them out of the fog, silent, eyes huge with the weight of what had happened.
You saw?
Carrick asked, falling in beside her.
I saw,
she said.
and I saw something else.
She kept walking as if the words would curdle if she stopped.
On the parapet, just a scratch. A circle, not the spiral. Smaller, high up, where a child would carve. I think this wasn't his first time on this bridge.
Practice?
Carrick said.
Ritual,
Lyra said.
there's a difference. Practice is a path. Ritual is a door.
Which one is worse?
Carrick asked.
Doors you go through.
She said.
Paths you can turn back on.
He didn't answer. There are questions a city teaches you not to. They did not take the relic straight to the Tower of Ash. Var was not that kind of fool. He took it to the watchhouse first, into the old armory with the arched ceiling and the floor that sloped gently to a drain because rooms like that had imagined a lot of things spilled on their stones. They set it on a table scarred with other weapons' histories and ringed it with lamps as though light could smother something that made its own darkness. Var sent a boy to the tower with a folded note. We have your missing bone. It tried to make more bones. Come with keys and truth. Clerk Fennel arrived with keys. Truth trailed behind, panting, trying to keep up. He stopped in the doorway as if the sight of the wrapped rod had reached out and pressed a hand against his chest. The smell of old blood lit his eyes with tired horror.
You found it,
he said.
It found us,
Var said.
What else did your books forget to mention?
Fennel took off his gloves. His hands were clean in the way a butcher's hands are clean. Carefully, repeatedly, and never for long. He approached the table and stopped a breath out of the circle of lamps, as if something personal stood there and would be offended if he trespassed.
It is named for what it makes,
he said.
Relic not because it is holy, but because it leaves relics in its wake. Pieces, fragments worshipped by the wrong kind of priests.
What does it do to a man who holds it?
Dawn asked, carefully not asking, what did it just try to do to me? Fennel looked at him and to his credit didn't look away.
It warms the marrow,
He said,
like a cup by a fire, until the marrow pours. It makes the bearer feel aligned, as if their will, which is always shaken, has suddenly found the groove it was meant to slide in. It isn't a curse. Curses are blunt. This is a compliment that doesn't end.
Who made it?
Uldren asked.
The notes say a name that no longer belongs to anyone living,
Fennel said.
He died with his ears packed with wax, trying not to hear the thing he made. Scholars call that irony. I call it instruction.
Can the tower contain it?
Var asked. Fennel's mouth tightened.
We can bind it, seal it, drown it in salt and sermons. But containment works on stone. This isn't stone. It is bone and want. Bone remembers.
Then we keep watch.
Var said.
With pikes and stubbornness.
Fennel nodded, and for a moment the man's fear retreated far enough that his other qualities could be seen. Steadiness. Shame.
There is more,
he said
in the notes. The relic compels advertisement. The spiral is not only a mark, it is a signature that grows impatient, if not written. If the bearer resists the urge to carve, the relic will press until they cannot sleep. Eventually, the hand will move.
So it loves the attention,
Lyra said.
It loves the proof,
Fennel said softly.
It wants to see itself reflected.
Var scratched his jaw.
Good,
he said.
Then we'll starve it.
How?
Fennel asked.
We stop saying its name,
Var said.
We stop telling people there's a god in our armory. We call it a stick that belongs in a ditch. We lie. I am good at lying when the truth isn't useful yet.
He turned to Carrick.
The man, Micah Prown, has friends. Not because he is likable, because this sort of thing builds a church. Find the church. Break its benches.
Carrick nodded.
We start with the bell foundry,
he said.
And the tallow market, and the stone yards.
And the tower,
Lyra said softly. Var looked at her for a long time.
And the tower,
he said.
Because if I had to hide a monster, I would do it under the bed that everyone else says is safest.
He blew out one lamp, then another, one by one, until the room held only the low, practical light of the armory's single sconce. The wrapped relic lay in the dim like a serpent that had been persuaded to sleep. Uldren settled cross-legged by the table, hatchet across his thighs. Dawn took the far corner, where the shadows from the lamp made a triangle that could hide a man if he used it right. Lyra stood by the door, hands in pockets, body loose and ready. Carrick leaned against the stone and watched the rise and fall of the small flame.
Tonight we keep breathing,
Var said.
Tomorrow we make someone else breathe less.
He left them there with the thing they'd grabbed out of the city's teeth. Outside, the fog thickened. Somewhere on the river, a boatman coughed, and the sound echoed under the bridges like a nail being tapped into wood. Near midnight, a softer knuckle rap tapped the armory door. Lyra's head cocked. The dwarf's fingers found his hatchet without looking. Dawn's eyes opened, though no one had seen them close. Carrick slid the bolt. The door sighed. A child stood in the hall, the chalk-stained boy from the bridge. He had washed badly, fear is hard to scrub. He looked past Carrick at the wrapped thing on the table, and some rib-deep instinct made him shiver.
Shouldn't be here,
Carrick said gently.
Ghosts haunt these hours.
The boy nodded.
I know. I brought one.
He lifted a hand. Between two dirty fingers, pinched like a bug he was afraid of losing, lay a small object, a sliver of bone carved into a thin ring, set with a spiral so small you could hide it in the dimple of a thumbnail.
I found it near the bridge,
the boy said.
in the crack where the water spits. It hummed. I didn't like it humming there. I thought maybe this is where humming things go.
Kerrick took the ring with the caution he'd used to move a sleeping scorpion. He laid it on the table beside the wrapped relic. The hum he hadn't heard until now stopped. Uldren exhaled, a sound like a hinge being oiled.
That's how it spreads,
he said softly.
Relics make relics. Teeth make teeth.
Kerrick looked at the boy and saw the city again the way he had the first week Lyra showed him how to read it. Brutal, petty, magnificent, forgiving.
What's your name?
He asked.
Linnet,
the boy said.
Of course it is.
Kerrick said.
You're paid.
The boy shook his head.
You're keeping the humming quiet,
he said.
That's payment. But if you see the bridge, tell it I didn't drop this on purpose. I don't litter.
We'll pass on the message,
Lyra said solemnly, and Linnet believed her because some voices make truth out of simple things. When he had gone, the four of them returned to their watch. The ring sat next to the relic like a seed beside a root. The lamp burned, the city breathed. They waited for dawn. And in a place where the tower's walls met the city's stones with a seam that had been poorly mortared, a thin line of ash sifted through as if something on the other side had sighed. Part 2. Law in Ash. The cells of the watchhouse had been carved from stone already tired of holding weight. The walls wept when it rained. The doors sagged on their hinges. The straw stank of wet dog and forgotten men. Micah Prune sat in the second cell from the left, wrists bound in separate irons, ankles crossed. He looked ordinary again. The weapon had been stripped from him, the glow drained from his eyes, and without it he was simply a man who had chosen the wrong road too many times and found himself at the end of it. Captain Var stood with his hands hooked into his belt, staring through the bars. His cigarette smoked on the floor, stubbed out and ignored.
You want to explain yourself?
Var asked. Micah smiled thinly.
I didn't do anything you don't do, Captain. I kept order. I showed people consequences. Isn't that what the watch is for?
Kerrick, who stood beside Var, leaned forward until his shadow stretched into the cell.
The watch doesn't kill,
he said.
We stopped killing.
Micah's laugh was thin as glass breaking.
You stopped nothing. You delayed it. The relic is older than you, older than me, older than the tower. It wants what it wants.
You found it,
Var said.
Or it found you. Which is it?
Micah's eyes glittered.
Both! I was walking in the stone yards. Everyone said there was nothing there but rubble. But rubble remembers, Captain. I saw the spiral in the dust. I drew it. And the dust answered.
You expect me to believe it just crawled into your arms?
Var said.
I expect nothing,
Micah said.
Belief isn't required. It's a gift, not a bargain.
Kerrick's jaw tightened.
Who else knows? Who helped you?
Micah leaned back against the wall. The iron bit his wrists, but he didn't flinch.
You think I'm part of a cabal? That there are meetings, handshakes, masks? Number. The relic is its own congregation. One relic, many worshippers. Some haven't touched it yet. They don't need to. It whispers to them anyway.
The Painted Order?
Var asked. Micah's grin widened, cracked.
Clowns? Number. They paint their masks to feel like gods. They wouldn't know a god if it bled on them.
The veil?
Kerrick pressed.
Every guild is guilty.
Micah said.
Every guild is hungry. They'll all kneel when they see what the relic can do. Why spend years starving through ledgers and contracts when one pull of the trigger makes a debtor into dust?
The word hung in the air like the echo of a bell. Trigger. Neither Var nor Kerrick asked what it meant. They knew already. Var reached through the bars, grabbed Micah's collar and slammed him against the wall.
Listen to me. The city is not your church. It is not your choir. It is not your grave unless I say it is. You are done.
Micah smiled through bloodied lips.
Done? Number. I'm the beginning. You can chain me, Captain, but you can't chain the song. It's already out there.
His eyes shifted past Var to where Dawn lingered in the shadows near the stair.
The Stone One knows. He felt it. He wants it.
Dawn didn't move, but the silence that followed was heavy. Var let Micah drop, the prisoner's laugh echoing down the row of cells like something with claws. They left him there, with 2 guards and orders not to listen too closely to anything he said. In Var's office, the watch gathered. The map of Larkenfall spread across the desk like an opened wound. Circles marked in chalk showed where the murders had happened. The alley, the theatre, the counting house, the bridge. Kerrick had drawn a 5th circle at the Bell Foundry, unconfirmed but likely.
The relic isn't quiet.
Kerrick said.
It wants an audience. It wants marks left behind. That means it will go where people gather, or where symbols matter.
Markets.
Uldren said, tapping his hatchet against the table.
Fountains. Guild halls.
Festivals.
Lyra added.
And there's one coming.
The Festival of Lanterns,
Dawn said. His voice was steady, but his eyes lingered on the map too long.
Half the city will be in the streets. Lanterns lit, masks on. A killer could walk among them and be praised for his costume.
Var blew smoke toward the rafters.
So, we need to stop waiting for him. We need to find his nest. The Bell Foundry is our best lead.
The tower won't like us sniffing there,
Kerrick said.
The tower can drown itself in its own books.
Var snapped.
I don't care what it likes. I care about the next corpse.
He leaned forward, scar on his forearm catching the lamplight.
We move tonight. Kerrick, you lead the strike. Uldren, Dorn, Lyra, you're with him. Nibs stays here with me. The rest of the watch cordon the market in case our man slips. No one goes in without steel in hand.
Kerrick nodded. He felt the weight of it settle into his chest. Responsibility and dread, bound in the same iron.
Captain,
Lyra said, her voice low.
What if it's not just him?
Var's eyes, red around the rims, narrowed.
Then we kill more than one.
The Bell Foundry was a ruin crouched on the river's edge, its walls blackened by old fires, its roof sagging in like a broken jaw. Once, it had forged the bells that told the city when to pray, when to mourn, when to hide. Now the only sound was the rush of water beneath the stones and the hiss of rats in the shadows. Kerrick signalled the team forward. They moved like a blade through the dark. Lyra scouting ahead, Uldren close at his flank, Dawn in the rear like a wall that could walk. The main doors were barred with rusted chain. Kerrick put a hand on Dawn's arm. The troll flexed, and the chain snapped like thread. The doors groaned open. Inside, the air smelled of copper, soot, and something faintly sweet that did not belong. The floor was littered with shards of metal and broken moulds, and in the centre, beneath the cracked ribs of the roof, lay a spiral drawn in ash wide enough to swallow a wagon. Candles ringed it, guttering low, and around the spiral men in hoods knelt. Not one, not two, a dozen. Each one held a fragment of bone in their hands, each fragment carved with the spiral. The watch froze at the sight. It was not one madman. It was a congregation. One hooded figure looked up, his voice carried full of fervour echoing in the dead foundry.
Brothers, sisters, the relic has spoken. The watch has stolen it, but it cannot be bound. Tonight we write our mark in fire.
The kneeling figures rose as one. Bone fragments gleamed in their fists. Kerrick's hand tightened on his pike.
Captain was right.
He muttered.
There's more than one.
Then he raised his voice, iron over fear.
Watch. Take them alive if you can, dead if you must.
The foundry erupted in chaos. The first zealot reached Lyra with a fragment of bone held like a dagger. She slipped inside the stab, pivoted, and tapped the nerve by his elbow with the butt of her knife. The fragment fell. Uldren's hatchet came down, pinning the man's sleeve to a warped plank. He howled and stopped howling when Uldren's forearm pressed across his throat. Another hood rushed Kerrick, bone flashing. The pike met him low, taking the kneecap cleanly. The man folded with a hoarse bleat. Kerrick planted a boot on his chest and looked up in time to see 3 more breaking from the ring of candles as one of the kneelers began to chant. The chant was not words. It was a steady push of breath, a tannery bellows forcing air through a reed. It made the hair rise along Kerrick's arms. The spiral in ash seemed to darken, as if a tide of shadow had turned and was running back toward its source.
Break the circle,
Kerrick shouted. Dawn had already understood. He lumbered into the chalk and ash and ruined it under stone heels, smearing the careful lines into vague smudges. The candles nearest him guttered and died as if offended. One of the zealots altered his charge in a last instant of sense. He flung his bone fragment like a dart. It struck Dawn's shoulder and stuck there, half buried in granite skin. Dawn froze. The foundry sound, clatter, grunt, breath, seemed to drain away, leaving a silence that rang. The bone shard in the troll's hide pulsed once like a slow heartbeat.
Dorn!
Lyra shouted. He didn't answer. He lifted his hand and touched the shard, and his fingers shook, not with pain but with yearning. His gaze fixed somewhere above them, beyond the broken rafters, past the sagging roof to a sky none of them could see. Kerrick tore his eyes away. A zealot sprang at him. He met the leap with the pike's iron collar, smashed teeth, and drove the butt into the man's gut.
Uldren, Dorn.
Uldren swore, let go the hatchet in the pinned sleeve, and hurled himself at the troll. He wrapped both arms around Dawn's waist like a child clinging to a cart axle, and set his boots against the floor.
You're not going,
he grunted.
You hear me, Boulder? You don't get to leave.
Dawn's great hands closed on Uldren without malice, as if he were a bundle that needed moving, and lifted him easily. For a heartbeat, Kerrick thought the troll would simply set the man aside and walk, inexorable as a tide. Lyra came in fast, blade reversed. She sliced Dawn's shoulder around the shard, shallow as she dared. Stone flaked like slate. The bone pulsed again. Dawn groaned, deep, cavernous, and then bent his head to the wound and pressed his forehead against the shard like a penitent at an altar. The chant swelled.
What is that sound?
Uldren gasped, teeth bared.
I can taste it in my fillings.
One zealot, eyes wild, lips cracked with devotion, threw back his hood and lifted his fragment high.
Hear it! Hear the mouth!
He screamed.
Hear the voice in the relic! Open! Open!
He brought the shard down, point first, into the ash spiral. A thread of darkness stitched the air from nowhere to here. It was so thin that at first Kerrick thought it a trick of lamplight, a shimmer like heat above hot cobble. Then it passed across a hanging chain, and the chain vanished. Not snapped, but effaced, turned to a puff of grey that fell like smoke.
Down!
Kerrick roared. He pulled Lyra by the collar and they both fell flat as the thread combed the air where their heads had been. It brushed a far wall and carved a line as clean as a scribe's rule, and the stones along it sagged and slid apart as if they had always been 2 pieces pretending to be one. Something laughed in the rafters, not human, not kind. The zealots cried out in triumph, some in terror. More shards lifted, more points sank into the spiral's smeared bones, more threads began to draw, each hunting for a line to unmake.
Break the stones,
Kerrick shouted to no one in particular and everyone at once.
Kick the ash! Scatter it!
Lyra rolled, caught a candle with her boot and sent it skittering into the circle. Wax hissed on soot. Flame licked the pattern and distorted it. The threads flickered. Uldren, still locked on Dawn, changed his tactic. He slammed his forehead into the troll's hip.
Dorn, I'm here. I'm heavy. You carry me. You love that, you stupid mountain.
Dawn's hands loosened. Not much. Enough. Kerrick leapt, tore the shard free from Dawn with both hands. It came away with a resistance that felt like pulling a tooth from a jaw. The instant it left the troll's skin, the shard turned hot. So hot, it should have scalded bone. Kerrick held on anyway. He hurled it into the brazier. It hissed like water on an anvil, and the room's thin threads jerked, then stuttered. Dawn sagged to one knee. He was panting. Stone dust fell from the wound in a fine, glittering rain.
It sings,
he rumbled.
I know.
Carrick said. One zealot, desperate, darted to the brazier and thrust his hand into the coals to fish the shard back out. He screamed and never finished the sound. Uldren's hatchet took his hand off at the wrist. The severed thing churned in the fire like a startled animal and then stilled. The zealot fell back, clutching stump to chest. His eyes were not on his wound. They were on the shard he had loved more than his life. The look on his face made Lyra shiver even as she swept his legs and let him drop.
Pin them!
Carrick ordered.
Bind their wrists! Keep them from the ash.
The zealot to Carrick's left loosed a thread that sliced a brass bell mould in half. The mould's top slid off the bottom with a child's toy dignity and hit the floor. Dust geysered. The thread scribbled towards Carrick like a blind gnat seeking blood. He flung himself sideways. The thread passed over his pike's haft. The wood didn't so much burn as forget itself, and the haft came away in 2 pieces, ends grey and frilled. Carrick stared at them dumbly for the span of a breath, and then hurled the ruined weapon at the zealot. It struck him in the throat. The man reeled, gagging. Lyra's knife worked like punctuation. Uldren's hatchet wrote an uglier script. Dawn, half back to himself, put his bulk where the threads fell thickest, and took their kisses on his hide, taking on a scatter of grey nicks that made him look as if rain had begun to erode him.
Don't!
Carrick barked.
Don't take it all.
Dawn turned his head. There was the ghost of a smile at the edge of his jagged mouth.
I am broad.
Not that broad.
Carrick snapped. Then the chant broke. Not because they had silenced the chanter, he was still up, eyes rolled white and foaming like a mad horse, but because another voice, larger and older, rolled through the foundry and crushed the syllables flat. It did not come from a mouth. It wasn't heard by ears. It arrived the way winter arrives, without haste, without apology.
Mine?
Every flame in the room stretched thin and bent toward the ash spiral like grass before wind. A dozen zealots flung themselves to their knees. One began to sob, one vomited, one laughed high and cracked and would never stop laughing again. Lyra's hand found Carrick's sleeve and held on. Her eyes were wide and dry.
Is that?
Don't answer it,
Carrick said, barely moving his lips.
Mine.
The threads in the air braided, seeking each other like snakes. They formed a single dark stroke that hung and trembled and made the foundry ache. Carrick seized the nearest thing with heft, a splintered half of his ruined pike, and slammed it through the spokes of the nearest gear in the old casting winch.
Dorn! Chain!
He shouted. The troll lumbered, seized the hanging chain they had earlier effaced, and tore loose another. He flung the length of it across the ash spiral, spoiling the geometry a second time. Uldren, catching the idea, dragged a cracked mould and pushed it, grinding the ash into an ugly smear. The braided dark unbraided lost its appetite, frayed. Lyra pitched her last candle into the brazier. Flame heaved up, greedy, and chewed down the last of the shard Carrick had thrown there. Whatever had lived inside the bone did not scream as it died. It simply stopped being present. The chant guttered. Silence came back, less absolute but heavier. Men panted. Someone cried quietly in a corner. The river under the foundry sounded suddenly very loud, as if it had returned from far away. Carrick stood with his chest heaving, wrists burning where the heat of the shard had kissed him. He looked at the ring of zealots. 3 prone, 4 pinned, 2 dead with mouths open like dry wells. He turned slowly, scanning for more movement, and met the gaze of the one who had started the chant, a man of indeterminate years whose beard had been cut to a point with manic care. The man smiled at him with teeth filed on purpose to points.
Little watchman,
He whispered, and there was ash on his breath.
you break patterns well. That is a kind of prayer.
Carrick lifted the broken pike shard again.
Put your wrists out,
He said.
or I break them where they are.
The man obligingly extended his hands. Carrick bound them. He bound them hard. Lyra crouched by a zealot who had taken Uldren's hatchet to the wrist. She wrapped the stump in a torn cloak and tied it off. The man watched her work with something like gratitude and wept. Uldren wiped his blade on a hood and then on his own trousers for good measure. He walked over to the brazier, stared into it, and spat.
Can't throw a proper wake for bones like that,
he muttered.
Won't be no good ghosts.
Dawn sat heavily on a block of slag and touched the shallow crater in his shoulder. Stone grated on stone.
It wants me,
he said, almost to himself.
It knows me. Knows the cave names.
Carrick looked up sharply.
What did it say?
Dawn's brow furrowed, the lines across it like fault scars.
It said, mine. But not like a child. Like a mountain.
Captain Var will want the dead counted,
Lyra said.
And the living.
Carrick replied.
Especially the living. We take everyone who breathes. We'll pry names from them until they're as hollow as their bones.
He signalled the runners at the door who had stayed wisely out of the way during the fighting.
Fetch the wagon. Fetch irons. Tell the captain, not one man, many. Tell him the relic can be thrown.
The runner blanched and nodded and fled. Carrick let himself look around one last time before the work began in earnest. The foundry's black ribs stood around them like the inside of a carcass. Candles guttered in their own wax. The ash spiral lay defaced and dull. The air tasted of coin and old prayers. He thought of the festival of lanterns and the way threads could carve through crowds like a god's finger writing in dust.
Lyra,
he said quietly.
We have to stop the festival.
She laughed once without humour.
And tell the council why?
Tell them the truth,
Carrick said, and picked up the next pair of wrists. They marched the zealots through midnight streets, wrists bound behind backs, heads bent, lit by the cold light of the watchhouse lamps. People who woke to the sound of the wagon's iron wheels peered through shutters and then shut them again. Larkenfall loved a spectacle, but this one was the wrong kind. It had too much ash in it. Captain Var stood waiting under the arch when they rolled in. He took it in with a single raptor's glance. The bruises, the blood, the 3 still forms under tarps. The smell. He didn't ask if they were hurt, he asked.
How many lived?
7,
Carrick said.
1 maimed, 2 dead. We ruined a working. It seemed like it almost reached across to us.
Var's mouth thinned.
A reach? From where?
Carrick looked past him to the corridor that led down to the cells.
From not here, sir.
Var didn't press. He had once seen a salt marsh swallow a child so quietly that the reeds hadn't trembled. He knew a reach when he smelled it.
Cells 2 through 5,
he said to the guards.
No one alone with them. Not even to piss. If they whisper, you sing funeral songs. Loud.
He jabbed a finger toward Carrick's scorched wrists.
You, Sit, Lyra, Dorn, Medic Bay, Uldren, with me.
Sir,
Uldren said, and trailed Var like a faithful dog with a bloodied muzzle. Carrick found a bench in the office and let his shoulders breathe. His hands were shaking now that he had a moment to notice. The heat kiss from the shard had left a neat oval of blister along the heel of his palm. He flexed his fingers and watched the blisters weep. The pain was clean, he welcomed it. Nibs appeared with a kettle and 3 mugs. He put one into Carrick's hand and then hovered awkwardly.
Captain sent me to count the dead in the foundry. So I went after you left. You did good.
He glanced up, quick and brittle.
It stank like a church.
Carrick sipped. The tea tasted like leaves and smoke.
It was a church,
he said.
Of a kind.
They sat in companionable silence until Uldren returned. His face was a study in stubbornness barely containing rage.
Captain wants council at dawn,
he said.
He's going to ask to cancel the festival.
Carrick huffed.
Ask?
Uldren's mouth twisted.
He'll ask with a knife under the question.
Good,
Carrick said, but he didn't feel it would be enough. Men with money hated nothing so much as joy delayed. Lyra came in, binding a strip of linen around her forearm where a thread had taken more skin than was fair. Dawn ducked under the doorbeam behind her, shoulder packed with mortar and wrapped like a soldier's torse with banding that looked ceremonial on stone. He seemed smaller for the first time since Carrick had met him, less mountain and more man who carried one inside.
Micah prone?
Carrick asked, glancing at the corridor toward the cells.
Captain had him moved to the far cell,
Nib said.
away from the others. He said the air around that man feels like tinder.
As if summoned by the word, there came a sound like a single small clap. Not from the office, not from the yard, from the cells below. Uldren and Carrick were running before they thought about it. Lyra was astride behind, Dawn hammering after like a slow avalanche. 2 guards were already at the end of the corridor, faces stark and pale. One was fumbling with keys, the other stood with her hand pressed flat to the iron of Micah's cell door as if testing for heat.
Move!
Carrick snapped. The guard flattened to the wall. Carrick slid the key home. The lock had always had a fraction of play. It stuck now as if the tumblers were reluctant to be responsible for what the door would show. He shouldered the door, it swung. Micah Prune sat on the narrow cot. His wrists were still in irons, his ankles too. His head was upright, tilted slightly as though he'd heard a song and was trying to catch the last note. His chest was open, not cut, not torn, open the way a flower opens, with a logic that has nothing to do with knives. There was no blood to speak of. There should have been rivers. Instead, there was ash, thin as dust, grey as regret, settled around him on sheet and floor like drifted snow. In the centre of that ash lay a neat spiral, drawn with a finger, as intimate as a signature. Lyra's breath escaped her in a sound like a prayer someone had blasphemed. Uldren swore without heat.
How?
The back wall said, "This way." A line through the bricks shaved them to silt. Someone had reached here. Someone had written in him and left the page on the bed. Carrick stepped inside. He did not touch Micah. He did not need to. It was plain he had been dead long enough for the warmth to go, short enough the ash still remembered where it had fallen from.
He said it was a gift.
Carrick murmured.
He wanted to be a reliquary.
Var arrived. He stopped in the doorway, took it in, and made a soft sound that might have been a curse, and might have been a note on which rage would be built later.
Shut the corridor,
he said without looking away.
No one in or out. Carrick, Lyra, notes. Uldren, with me to the council. Dorn, station yourself outside this door, and do not let the air pass unless it shows papers.
Dorn nodded gravely. He planted himself in the corridor like a pillar that had decided the roof must not fall today. Var finally turned. His eyes were fever bright.
They're inside our walls without walking,
he said.
So we have to build walls that a song cannot cross.
How?
Nibs asked faintly from somewhere behind Carrick's shoulder. Var bared his teeth in what might have been intended as a smile.
By shouting louder.
He adjusted his coat, habit, armor, lie, and jerked his head toward the stairs.
Council won't refuse us. Not after I bring them his name as ash on a sheet. If they do, we haul their benches into the street and hold the vote where the city can see us.
Sir,
Carrick said. Var paused. He waited, the way he always did, for the question he didn't want. Carrick asked it anyway.
and if they say yes, and we stop the festival, and we lock doors, what stops the song from arriving anyway? From carving in single file through shutters and throats?
The captain's gaze did not waver.
Nothing,
he said.
But we can choose how many throats are in the street at once.
He left them with that arithmetic. Dawn found the council hall lit like a church and crowded like a market. The city's leaders had come without their better cloaks, but they had not come without their better arguments. Var stood at the speaker's lectern, hands flat and blunt, and told them what had happened in the night. The cult, the ash, the threads, the way the air could be made into a blade. He did not embellish. He did not need to. He showed them Micah Prune's spiral drawn on linen. He did not tell them it had been drawn with a finger that had once been attached to a living man. He let them smell the ash and make their own fine conclusions. The Guildmaster of Talimen spoke first, because he always did.
Captain, the Festival of Lanterns is not a joy. It is a necessity. The quarter's debts turn in that week. The city's credit is tied to...
People live in their faces,
Var said.
You can write numbers on their bones if you want, but I'd rather not have you do it with an ash knife while a puppet master tries a new tune.
Murmurs, dissatisfaction, fear. The head of the theatre guild lifted a languid hand.
What if
He paused, tasting the room.
we double the watch and triple the lanterns? Light is a ward, yes? This is a superstition. We fight it with superstition. People like that.
Kerrick, standing with the watch at the hall's edge, felt an old familiar anger bloom. Fear made men clever in the wrong directions. Var tapped the lectern with one finger. The hall quieted.
You will hear a great deal of what if today,
he said.
Let me offer the certainty. I will not place my people in narrow streets under swinging lights while a weapon that can reach from nowhere to here practices on their spines. I will not let your masked festival give masks to the men who want to write your names in your throats.
But Captain,
the head of the Chandler's cartel said, affecting patience,
if we cancel, we will have riots.
We already have a riot,
Var said softly.
It just hasn't learned to walk on two legs yet.
He let that settle, then leaned forward, and his voice gentled in a way Carrick had only heard when he spoke to widows and children.
I am not asking for a month,
he said.
I am asking for 3 days. We will use them. We will find the dens. We will drag them into light. We will make the relic sing to itself.
3 days,
the theatre man said, smiling faintly.
Becomes a week.
Only if the ash keeps writing,
Var replied. The Lord Steward of the city, sallow, sleepless, forever trying to balance columns that didn't want to marry, closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose.
We will need a vote,
he said. The vote was ugly. It was loud. It was not unanimous, but it was enough. The Festival of Lanterns died a quick, necessary death that morning, and the city's sigh was more like a pout than a breath of relief. Vendors raged. Priests prayed publicly and cursed privately. Children sulked and didn't understand why the grown-ups had taken their lights away. The watch stood in pairs on corners to make sure disappointment didn't find teeth. Back in the watch house, Lyra and Kerrick bent over the captured shards, now carefully cooled and wrapped, and tried to work out how something so small could write such large lines in the world. Aldrin rounded up informers, shook out gutters, and followed whispers. Dawn stood at the cell door and did not grow 1 inch smaller. As the sun moved along the city's broken roofs, news drifted in like shavings off a plane. A symbol scratched behind a baker's oven. A ledger with a spiral in the margins next to certain names that always got favourable rates. A mask maker in South Ward who had started carving spirals into the cheekbones of his wares. And in the quiet between errands, when the watch house briefly held its breath, Nibs sat by Micah's empty cell, wrote the dead man's name once on a blank page, and then tore it out and burned it. He did not know why. It merely felt like a kind of mercy. That night the city's lamps burned brighter because fewer were lit. The river moved as it had moved before any city threw bridges across it. Somewhere in the galleries of the old tower, a bell rang that no hand touched. Its note stretched thin and then snapped like a wire. A scribe woke from a doze with a mouthful of the taste of coins and didn't know why. Kerrick dreamt of a foundry with ribs like a whale's cage and woke with his hand against his chest, half convinced he would find a spiral there written in ash. He didn't, not yet. On the 3rd day, a boy with lantern mender's chalk on his fingers brought the watch a message written on cheap paper, in a careful, educated hand.
The choir loved the foundry. The choir has many throats. The choir sings next where mirrors gather and steps climb in a circle. Come here, bring your best ears. A friend.
Aldrin scratched at his scalp.
Mirrors, steps, circle, that's...
The House of Looking,
Lyra said.
The old observatory. The one the Painted Order turned into a maze.
Kerrick folded the note and slid it into his pocket. He felt the shape of the words against his thigh like a coin he did not want to spend.
Then we go,
he said. Captain Var nodded once.
We go,
he confirmed. and the grim line that sometimes passed for a smile found his mouth.
And this time, we don't just break their circle. We walk to the center and take it.
Outside, a wind rose that smelled like rain and iron filings. The city's roof shivered, as if remembering snow that had never fallen here. The watch buckled on their kit and stepped into the street. The House of Looking waited up on the hill like an eye. The choir would be there. The relic would be listening. The song would be ready. Kerrick flexed the hand the shard had burned and found it steady.
Law in ash.
He murmured.
Law in ash,
Lyra echoed, and they climbed. The House of Looking stood on the rise like a skull turned skyward. Its great dome, once copper, had dulled to the colour of rot. Cracks ran through the plastered walls like veins. The windows were long gone, leaving holes where eyes should have been. Long ago sages had watched stars from here, charting patterns they thought would teach men to predict their deaths. Now the Painted Order claimed it, turning the crumbling observatory into a maze of mirrors and scaffolds, a theatre for laughter that tried too hard. At dusk the dome glowed faintly with firelight, as if the sky itself had settled into the ruin to listen. Var brought the watch up the broken path in a staggered file. His coat was buttoned, his cigarette unlit, jaw working on an invisible tooth. Kerrick walked ahead with the map burned in his head, spear haft newly cut, still smelling of sap. Lyra padded in his shadow, breathing like a cat with its ears cocked for prey. Dawn and Aldrin brought up the rear, one silent as stone, the other muttering to himself in dwarfish, polishing his hatchet until it gleamed. The note in Kerrick's pocket weighed more than steel. The choir sings next, where mirrors gather and steps climb in a circle. They stopped short of the main door, its wood warped and nailed shut with boards marked by the spiral.
Back,
Var ordered.
We don't knock. Not when someone invites us to.
They circled instead to a breach in the side wall where ivy had chewed through stone. The air grew colder with each step. Lyra slid ahead, pressing herself flat, slipping through with a cat's ease. Kerrick followed, less graceful, scraping his pauldron. Inside, the dust was thick enough to be tasted. The first chamber had once been a hall for instruments. The mounts for great lenses still jutted from the floor like the bones of extinct animals. Now, cheap carnival mirrors had been nailed to the walls, catching the lamplight and splitting it into ragged shards. Every face was reflected, twisted, Kerrick taller, Var narrower, Aldrin missing half his beard, Dawn in pieces too large for the frames. Lyra hissed low.
Smell that?
They all did. Bone dust and sweet smoke clinging like mildew. Steps led upward in a spiral, climbing toward the dome. The echoes from above were not laughter, not yet. They were practice breaths measured in unison, building toward a single note.
The choir,
Kerrick whispered. They climbed. At the top, beneath the dome, the mirrors had been arranged into a great circle, angled to reflect into one another so that the center glowed with stolen light. A dozen figures knelt within, their hoods down, their faces bare this time. Men and women, old and young. Each held a bone fragment to their lips as though it were a flute. The sound they made was not music. It was a single, endless note, drawn thin and sharpened until it cut. It vibrated in the skull, loosening thoughts like teeth. And in the centre of their ring, propped on a black cloth altar, lay the Ashborn relic. Wrapped, yes, but the cloth quivered, and the air above it bent with heat. Kerrick felt the song in his marrow. The urge to step forward and kneel was sudden and strong, like a memory of prayer in a man who had never prayed. His knees bent before he realized it. Lyra's hand gripped his wrist, nails biting deep.
Don't,
she hissed.
It wants you low.
Var didn't kneel. He leaned into the note with teeth clenched, veins standing out in his neck.
Break it,
he growled.
Now!
The watch surged into the circle. The first zealot raised his fragment and the note sharpened. A line of force lanced across the dome, striking a mirror. The glass split into powder. The sound multiplied as though one thread had become 1,000. Aldrin roared and hurled his hatchet. It buried itself in the man's shoulder, breaking the bone fragment free. The note wavered, fell, but the others held it. Lyra slid low, cutting a zealot's wrist, sending his flute spinning. She kicked it across the floor. It skittered, struck a mirror, and carved a neat spiral before shattering. Dawn charged straight through the ring. Mirrors burst around him, shards falling like rain. He swiped one zealot aside, then another, leaving them gasping. For a moment the note wavered, threatened to collapse. Then the zealot at the altar threw back her hood. Her eyes burned red in the mirror light. She seized the relic through its wrappings and lifted it high. The note swelled into a scream. The cloth blackened and burst. The pale stock gleamed. The sigils writhed like worms. The choir howled together, and the relic answered. Crack! One mirror exploded outward. The shards flew like razors. Kerrick raised his pike shaft to shield his face, but one shard cut his cheek open to the bone. Uldren ducked under another, swearing in Dwarfish. Dawn took a rain of glass across his back, stone flaking, sparks shedding like embers. The zealot with the relic aimed it downward into the mirrors, and the reflected circle of light bent, split, and turned into a web of threads. Everywhere at once they struck, steps shattered, chains snapped. The dome itself groaned, cracks racing across its plaster like lightning.
Stop her!
Var roared. His voice was hoarse against the scream of the relic. Kerrick lunged. The zealot swung the mouth of the weapon toward him. Crack! The floor between them disintegrated, a hole opening like a jaw. Kerrick fell, caught himself on the edge, fingers screaming. Lyra's hand caught his wrist, hauling with desperate strength. Uldren darted in. He slashed at the zealot's wrists with his hatchet. Sparks flew. The relic wrenched itself away as though it hated to be touched. Dawn came from the side, a moving wall. He tackled the zealot, both of them slamming into the altar. The relic skittered across the floor, spinning, singing. Kerrick pulled himself up, breathless. He saw it sliding toward the mirrors. If it touched, if it multiplied again. He dove. His hand closed around the stock. It was like grabbing lightning. His body locked. His vision filled with spirals, endless, hungry. A voice poured into him, not in words, but in certainty.
You are mine.
He saw the city burning. He saw guildmasters bowing. He saw a world written in ash.
No.
Kerrick gasped.
Not mine.
Lyra's hand struck his arm. Dawn's roar shook the dome. Uldren shouted his name. The voices outside dragged him back. He let go. The relic clattered to the stones. Var was there instantly, wrapping it again, this time in 2 layers of oiled leather. He spat on the writhing sigils.
Not tonight.
He growled.
Not while I still stand.
The zealots broke. Some fled down the stair. Some collapsed weeping. The one Dawn pinned bit her own tongue and choked on the blood, eyes rolling. When the noise finally guttered out, the dome was cracked, half the mirrors smashed, the altar split in 2. And the watch still breathed. They dragged the survivors down the stair and out into the grey light of dawn. The people of Larkenfall were gathering already, drawn by the noise. They stared at the zealots, bound and bleeding, and at the watch carrying the wrapped thing between them.
Tell them nothing.
Var barked at Kerrick.
Tell them it was just knives, just fanatics. No relic, no song. Not yet.
Kerrick looked at the crowd. Faces pale, mouths whispering. He wanted to shout the truth. He wanted them to know what hunted them. Instead he said,
It's done. Go home.
And he hated himself for how easily the lie came. Dawn walked on broken feet through Larkenfall. Smoke clung to the streets. The fog tasted of old coal and river rot. The House of Looking crouched behind them like a shaken hive. The wrapped thing rode between Dawn and Var on a pole. 2 layers of oiled leather and a coil of chain, as if weight and craft could substitute for control. They took no main road back to the yard. Var led them through alleys that stank of tannery swill and fish guts, under a sagging arch where pigeons had given up nesting, and only spiders dared hang their eggs. Faces peered from windows and then vanished. Doors unlatched and latched again, slow like eyes blinking.
Keep it high,
Var muttered.
No scrapes. If that wrap tears, I'll have the leatherer's hide to mend it with.
It's not going to...
Uldren began. The wrapped thing twitched. The chain chimed. Every hair on Kerrick's arm stood up. They carried it anyway. At the yard, Var didn't go through the front. He turned them around to the bolt door in the rear wall, the one with hinges sunk in stone. Inside was the armory. Shelves of seized knives and illegal blades, clubs the city was not supposed to own, a crate of salt rounds someone had once called non-lethal and then never used. In the back wall, a former coal vault, bricked over, then unbricked, then bricked again. Var had had the last bricks put in himself.
Down,
he said.
Dorn, hold, Uldren, lantern.
Kerrick held his breath while Var pried out a single brick with a hooked iron. Behind lay a black slot not much wider than a skull. Var threaded the chain through, feeding the wrapped relic after it, then seated a little iron gate and slid home the bolt. The metal sang the way a struck bone sings when you're very close to it.
Nothing.
Sleeps forever, Var said, as if quoting, and tamped the brick back into place.
But a wall helps.
Lyra exhaled.
Now we interrogate the choir? If any of them still want to sing,
Uldren said. Half did not. One had choked, 2 had fled, and 3 lay in the watch cells with their eyes turned inward so far their pupils had become moons. They sat cross-legged, swaying, humming under their breath. The tune slithered in the ear, almost familiar, almost comforting, like the taste of a herb your mother used for fevers, if your mother had been a cave and the fevers had been stars dying. Var paced the line of bars as if measuring them.
Who leads you?
He asked, level, conversational, like a man asking a price for turnips. Silence. The younger zealot, hair buzzed, cheek nicked by Lyra's knife, looked up through his fringe. A smile slunk over his face. It wasn't a human smile. It was a mask someone had nudged into position. A shape the muscle copied without understanding.
Spare your breath,
he said.
No courthouse for us, no rope. We go on. We always go on.
Lyra leaned on the bars.
If you wanted the rope, you only had to ask. The city keeps spares.
He tilted his head at her.
You'll be singing soon enough. All of you, even the stone.
His gaze slid to Dawn and lingered.
Especially the stone.
Uldren rubbed his jaw.
He's got a poet for a cousin.
Save your wit,
Var said. He crouched until he and the zealot shared breath.
Names,
he said.
Names and places. Give me a church. I'll give you a quiet corner in the debtor's hall. Give me a priest. I'll give you meat in your soup.
A priest?
The zealot said, almost tender.
You don't need a priest. The tower will do.
They all heard the capital letter. Var's eyebrow twitched.
The tower doesn't sing,
he said.
Not where you can hear it.
Before Var could ask more, Uldren swore. The eldest of the captured zealots, grey hair, hands calloused from some honest work before they turned, had gone stiff in his corner. His lips moved. His teeth chattered out a new rhythm faster than a heartbeat, faster than the hummed tune. Uldren had time to say,
He's doing something.
And then the man coughed. He coughed ash, not flecks, not soot. A handful, then a second. His eyes rolled white. He dug his fingers into his throat and pulled out a string of black. It disintegrated in the air. He shook like a man drowning, only the water was invisible and inside.
Move!
Var barked. Lyra was already in the cell, hand under the man's chin, thumb trying to pry his jaw open.
No, no,
he gurgled.
No blood! No! Sing!
Kerrick saw the rattle become a pattern. He couldn't name it, but he knew the shape. The ash did not just fall, it arranged itself. Spirals again, tiny and perfect, sinking into the cracks between the stones. The man went still. Lyra flinched back.
Poison?
She said tightly. Uldren knelt, careful not to disturb the ash coils. He sniffed. He licked a finger and touched it, then hissed and stuck the finger in his mouth.
Not poison,
he said when he had a voice again.
Or not the kind we can buy. This is kiln ash, the kind you get when bone burns hot enough to be offended.
He squinted at the spirals.
And someone taught him how to make it right.
Well,
Var said, standing.
There's your answers. Some things don't want to be spoken.
He ordered the corpse covered and the spiral scraped up and jarred.
Lock it.
He said when Uldren protested.
Odd things find odd ways out.
They did the paperwork because the city demanded it of them even now. Var's answers were clipped to the point of cruelty. Lyra's were tidy, letters marching like soldiers. Uldren's sheet smelled faintly of tobacco. Dawn's mark was a square with a notch. Kerrick wrote until his hand cramped. His words wandered. He drew the mirror circle almost without thinking, then crossed it out until the page was grey. He was blotting the last line when the bell on the front door hammered. Not the knock of a petitioner, not the scrape of a pickpocket pretending to be lost. This was the bell the noble houses used. It said, "Open, because I am openable." Var went, wiping ink from his fingers. He looked suddenly older. Kerrick trailed him, along with Lyra and Uldren. Dawn stood in the hall, hands at his sides, not hiding, not welcoming. 3 men waited on the steps. The first wore tower grey, a colour without name, and a coat heavy enough to drag a man to the river. His hair was white, not with age, but with intent. He had a scar high on the cheekbone like a second mouth. Behind him, a clerk wrestled with a tube of scrolls and a wooden chest bound in black iron. The third was a guard in the city's livery. His eyes were the eyes of a man who had made peace with the act of seeing nothing.
"Captain Var,"
said the man in grey.
"I am Custodian Rel of the Tower of Measures. I come at the Council's request."
His voice was a place with walls.
We keep the door open for the people,
Var said.
The tower uses other doors.
Rel's mouth moved by very small degrees that, in a weaker man, would have become a smile.
"We are the people, Captain. In a more elevated sense. May we enter?"
You may stand where you are,
Var said and stepped into the doorway.
Say your piece.
Rel yielded a fraction, enough to move the conversation forward.
"There was a disturbance last night at the House of Looking,"
he said.
"The tower heard it. We hear most things worth hearing. Our liaisons in the Council assure me the Watch responded nobly and that a dangerous contraband object was secured."
He indicated the chest with his eyes, not turning his head.
"Under Statute Fire 7, any megotechnical device with a projected lethality index above 8 belongs to the tower for containment, disassembly, or destruction. I am here to relieve you of a burden."
The Council can write statutes,
Var said.
The Yard enforces laws.
"The tower keeps the city alive,"
Rel said.
"We know the difference between what people want to be true and what will keep their blood inside them. Give me the weapon."
Lyra's weight shifted. Kerrick felt it more than saw it. Uldren let out a breath he had been collecting for a long time.
Your paper says please,
Var said.
But your eyes don't.
"Paper is how men avoid killing one another,"
Rel said. He tipped his chin. The guard pretended to tighten his grip on a spear he had no intention of using. The clerk swallowed and hugged the chest. Kerrick spoke before thinking.
"If you could destroy the relic,"
he said.
"why didn't you the last time?"
Rel looked at him. Really looked, seeing the country in him, seeing the shine of the boy who had come up through the mud with a sword and a smile.
"What do you know of last time's, Watchman?"
"Enough to hear the city still whisper about the Monastery of Lamps."
Kerrick said, heat threading his voice.
"Enough to see ash where a road should be. Enough to hear how a tower experiment sang the roof off and boiled 100 eyes in their skulls. Somehow the paperwork survived."
Uldren coughed once into his fist, a gambler acknowledging a bluff played as a punch. Rel stood very still. The clerk looked as if he wanted to be a bell and be rung far away.
"The tower did learn from the lamps,"
Rel said finally.
"We learned that when men of appetite dress their hunger in ritual, bodies pile up. We learned the Watch has neither tools nor habit to hold what it doesn't understand. Give me the weapon. A day later, you will be writing a report about a tavern brawl. The city will never know how close it came."
Var's hand flexed once at his side.
"And if we give it to you,"
Lyra said,
"and it finds its way into a cellar you approve of, into hands that have a budget line and a seal, What then, custodian? We have seen what it does to hungry men. The tower is full of men who forgot they were hungry.
Rel's gaze slid just slightly to the iron gate in the yard wall, to the corner where the old coal vault lay bricked and silent. He didn't need to ask, he knew. The tower always knew when something heavy had been set inside a wall.
What is your aim?
He said to Var.
To sleep with the loaded funerary mask under your bed? To wait for thieves? To martyr your sergeant to theatrics? You do not have the staff, the stone, the privilege. We do. The city begs you, give the proper burden to the proper shoulders.
Var stared past Rel at the thinning fog. His eyes cut to the river. When he spoke, the words were dry.
I'll bring it to the council chamber,
he said.
Not to your vault. Not to any place where doors close without windows. The council can vote for your statute with the thing in the room. Let the nobles smell what they legislate.
Rel's jaw moved as if he were chewing an invisible nut.
The council does not sit for such theatrics.
The council sits for lunch,
Var said.
They will sit for this.
The man in grey inclined his head a degree.
Very well. The tower can be pragmatic. We will attend. Afternoon bell. You will not produce the object earlier or elsewhere. If you attempt to move it beyond these walls before then, my men will become energetic, and the law will applaud us after.
My men will become energetic if yours forget how to count,
Var said.
Then we are provisionally civilized,
Rel said and stepped back.
Afternoon, Captain.
When the three had gone and the bell's echoes had crawled away under the eaves, Uldren said,
You just invited every cut-purse, picklock, and mural rat in the ward to take a turn at our bricks.
They were already coming,
Var said.
Now maybe they'll wait.
Lyra's lips had thinned to nothing.
You mean to bring it into the hall with the gold plates and the mirrors? The place with 6 doors and 7 exits if you count the bodies under the floor. The place Custodian Rel has keys to.
Var looked at her, and for a heartbeat the captaincy fell away and something raw looked out.
I mean to put it where cowardice eats,
he said.
Politics isn't a room, Lyra. It's a vein. You have to nick it.
He rubbed his thumb against the scar across his knuckles.
If we hide it, we own it. If the tower hides it, they own it. If the council looks at it while it breathes, maybe for 1 hour they will be men instead of titles.
Dawn grunted.
Stone says doors open from hinges, not from wishes.
I will take 2 hinges and a wish,
Var said.
Carrick, you're with me at the hall. Lyra, you go to your smiler. Find out who told the choir we were coming. Uldren, talk to the mortuary. I want names for our ash spitter's tongue. Dorn, sit on the wall. If a mouse runs toward that brick and carries a spiral on its back, I want you to flatten it until it reads straight.
Dawn nodded.
Straight,
he said.
Captain,
Carrick said quietly.
if the tower, if they decide the statute is more than paper...
We count very carefully,
Var said.
And we start with ourselves.
He turned and went to his office to find a coat that would look like deference and a hat that would look like respect. There are uniforms and uniforms, captains wear more than one. The Smiler stood 3 streets off the ward in a house that leaned toward its neighbour like a drunk whispering advice. A painted sign above the door showed a grin too big for any mouth. Inside, the walls were pinned with maps of the city that changed when you blinked. Narrow lanes thickening into canals and thinning to footpaths, street names the city had forgotten returning like stains. Thistle, ragpicker, rope. Lyra barely nodded at the boy with the eye patch who asked if she wanted a tincture for sleep. She pushed through curtains that had once been velvet until she came to a room where a woman with silver combs in her hair sat on a chair like a throne had died beneath it.
Cat,
The Smiler said, and Lyra endured the nickname because they had been children together and names from that time wear their own armour.
you've brought iron smell. The city sneezes.
The city will cough blood before noon if you tell me you know nothing,
Lyra said lightly, because threat and banter share a tongue.
The Painted Order sang at the House of Looking last night. Someone told them we were coming. It wasn't me.
Flattering.
Smiler said, and her smile was a crescent made by knives.
The choir moves like mold moves. Wherever there is damp, it flowers. Whose damp is the question?
And the answer?
The Smiler drummed her fingers on the chair's arm.
Who loves mirrors? Who buys glass that can be bent? Who pretends to be better than the man in the mud because their oil burns without smell?
She rolled her eyes upward.
The Actors Guild rented the House of Looking 2 months ago to make a joke of scholars. They had to stop because their audience began to hear 2 versions of every punch and laughed at the wrong time, but they kept the keys. They sublet to a baker who uses the cupola to dry bread. And last week,
She tapped 2 rings together.
Last week, one of the rivermen brought them a crate. Iron-bound, larded with wax like the tower does when it hides a beating animal and hopes it dies quiet. The seal was a counterfeit of a counterfeit, and the coin paid to look the other way had been through the hands of a miter's footman.
The council?
Lyra said.
Or someone who wears its coat,
The Smiler said.
but the riverman who carried the crate to the actor's door was found this morning with his throat cut and ash under his tongue.
Lyra breathed once through her nose.
You always do this,
she said.
You dress facts like dancers and make me tip them for a lap around the floor.
It's our little game.
The Smiler said.
Also, the coin matters. Money moves like a disease, Cat. It leaves fevers in paper. The last hands on that coin belong to a clerk in the measure house, what your captain calls the tower when he wants to be polite. The clerk plays crier for custodian Rel.
So the tower delivered the bait,
Lyra said.
Or someone in its shadow did.
Not bait.
The Smiler said softly.
An invitation. You can't join a dance unless you know the steps.
Lyra changed her weight.
If my captain brings the thing to the hall.
The Smiler's eyes flicked to the mirror on her desk. It showed the room from a little to the left, as if someone else stood there, listening.
The hall is a bowl,
she said.
It collects what's poured in. Sometimes nothing well comes out.
She reached to a lunch plate and pinched a sugared seed.
Your captain is a brave man in a way that used to get men knighted, when people still used their knees for kneeling and not just climbing stairs.
Brave men die,
Lyra said. The words fell like coins.
Tell me something I can hold.
Hold the fact that custodian Rel has asked the jail for 2 chains, not 1.
Smiler said.
2?
One for your captain's wall, one for a wall the tower understands.
Lyra stood suddenly. Her hands wanted edges.
Pay,
the Smiler murmured without looking up. Lyra took out 3 small bronze coins. She set them on the desk, and then, after a heartbeat, she set down a 4th. The Smiler's smile, for once, warmed.
For your sleep,
the Smiler said, and slid a vial across. The blue liquid inside it resisted the glass, clinging to the sides.
Or for someone else's.
Lyra pocketed it. On the way out, she stopped at the boy with the patch and tapped his chin.
If the man with 2 chains comes here,
she said,
trip him. Tell him the cat's been by.
The boy blinked slowly and his grin matched the sign outside. The mortuary smelled like lemon peel used in bad faith. Uldren stood at the slab while the watcher, a pinched man with fingernails painted black against formaldehyde stains, lifted the sheet for the 4th time.
Not a mark,
the watcher said.
No bruise, no cut, nothing under the nails. He lay down and breathed out until he forgot to breathe in again. He left the shape of a man on the board and took the man with him.
Spirals in the ash?
Uldren asked. The watcher didn't blink.
You're a watchman who brought us an ash boy this morning. I know your handwriting because it insults the page.
He lifted a hand. It shook a little.
They don't come off. The spirals, I scraped them with a spatula. I soaked them with lye. I burned them again. They hold.
Can I take one?
Uldren said softly.
No,
the watcher said as softly.
Not because I fear it, because it wants to go to your wall.
Uldren leaned on his thumbs and counted breaths.
Did a riverman come in?
2.
The Watcher said.
One with rope burns and a lot of water in him. One with the cut you'd give yourself to die faster if someone had already started for you.
Names?
Both were called Nobody.
The Watcher said.
One was older than the city. One had breath like lamp oil.
Uldren scrubbed at his eyes until the skulls painted on his lids matched the ones on the shelves.
If the city stands after noon,
he said,
send me what you can put on a page.
If the city falls at noon,
the Watcher said,
come lie down. The slab will be warm.
Carrick had never been in the council hall as a man with a badge. He had layered it in his mind with his first year's awe, the 7 windows that always showed weather from 7 days earlier, the black table, whose lacquer had been polished by more elbows than there were living souls in the ward, the curiously heavy velvet curtains that would not stir even when the doors opened, the chandelier that dripped like a nest of knives from the ceiling. Here the city dressed its hunger in etiquette. Here laws were born and then left to be raised by policemen. They came early. Var's boots beat a steady metronome on the marble. Carrick kept half a pace behind and to the left, spear-grounded, coat-belted, eyes on the corners. He counted the council guard, 8 at the walls, 2 at each door, and assigned them lanes in his head. He counted the faces in the balcony, the scribes, the wives, the men who thought they were husbands of the city and had merely married its money. Custodian Rel stood near the black table already, conferring low with Asmita's secretary, a wisp of a man who seemed to evaporate in direct light. 2 tower adepts in matching grey held a stretcher between them, something long and wrapped, very much like what lay under a brick in the yard. Rel's eyes flicked once to Var, then away, dismissing and encompassing in the same motion.
Captain,
the Mitre said as he entered. He was short and proud and wore rings that would have bought Carrick Street twice over.
I see you couldn't pass up the chance to parade.
Would that it were a parade.
Var said without bowing.
In a parade, people stand aside.
The Mitre's smile had the same engineering as the chandelier.
We are very grateful for the Watch's efforts to keep our fair city from harm,
he said, loudly enough to be heard beyond the first tier of benches.
Although, Custodian Rel assures me, some burdens are better carried by shoulders used to bearing them.
Several heads nodded. None of them belonged to men who had carried anything heavier than a ledger.
I will ask my questions soon,
the Mitre went on, settling into the central chair.
About jurisdiction, about responsibility, about statutes, but first, the thing itself. Captain?
Var didn't move.
The tower brings their own,
he said.
Show them yours, Custodian, and I will show you the truth then.
Several seconds of silence stretched long enough to become a threat. Rel's mouth kinked, still not quite a smile. He gestured. His adepts carried their stretcher forward and set it on trestles in the clearing before the table. He undid the straps himself, as if showing the councillors he risked what they risked. The final layer peeled back with a sound like breath sucked between teeth. A long shape in leather, bound in chain, smaller than it should have been, a mockery. Carrick's tongue went dry. Lyra's smiler had been right. 2 chains. The tower had brought a decoy to make the council feel brave or the watch feel foolish, or both.
Your turn,
Rel said. Var nodded to Dawn. The stone man had carried the coil and the pole in himself, and had set them within easy reach of a hard run. He now reached into a narrow cabinet near the door and withdrew a single brick. It looked like every other brick in the city. He held it up, let the chamber see the chalk mark on its face, and then set it on the trestles where the tower's bundle lay.
Behind this,
Var said evenly,
is something you need to see.
There were laughs, polite, unkind. Captain, the Mitre said, patient as a man with an axe at his feet waiting for the block to be brought out.
Make your point quickly.
I'm making it,
Var said.
The proper weight in a proper place keeps a wall from falling. The wrong weight collapses it. Custodian Rel, pray count your chains again.
Rel didn't move. His eyes were on Var the way a bell's clapper looks at a man's ear. Kerrick leaned, not quite enough to be visible, and saw the faintness in the tower's leather, the knots too neat, the chain unworn by struggle. Var lifted the brick and set it aside. The council leaned forward. He did not reveal a gate, did not pull out the wrapped relic with a flourish. Instead, he set his hand on the trestles and spoke to the hall the way a father speaks to a child who has put his wrist in the fire.
You have used the word statue,
he said to the mitre.
You have used it to mean, we do not wish to make a choice today. We will let someone else choose for us under our signature. This is how cities die. Today, you will choose with your own eyes, or you will eat the ash later and tell yourselves it was sugar.
Theatrics,
Rel said, soft as iron.
Here is the least of what you made under your seal,
Var said. He gestured to Kerrick. Kerrick did not want his hands on the chain again. Part of him still felt the song it had sung in the dome, but his captain had decided this would be an hour of truth. So he carried truth. They brought the wrapped relic out through the side door, not through the main, and when the guards moved to bar them, Dawn's shoulders moved 1 inch, and the bars remembered their duty was to serve people, not haunt them. They set the thing on the trestles beside the tower's decoy. It twitched even in leather. The chains throbbed against their bolts. Half the chamber stood without realizing it. The mitre's rings clicked on the black table. The 4 words he said had probably not been spoken by his office in a generation. Captain, he said.
Get that out.
Var did not smile, he did not breathe in. He put his hand on the leather.
For 1 minute,
he said.
Custodian, if I feel your men move, I drop it on your decoy and see if it can eat. Counselors, if you move, I assume you are trying to help the city and will stop you.
He loosened one strap. The leather gaped. Heat kissed the air, metallic and exhausted, the breath of a kiln sleeping with its tongue out. He loosened the second strap. The chains sang. Kerrick caught just a flash, bone made bright by a wrong light, sigils that did not lie on the surface, not exactly, but were the surface's thoughts, an impression of a mouth that was not a mouth. Then he shut it again, and the hall found itself listening to itself breathe. No one coughed. No one laughed.
Now,
Var said, and if a man could make a word into a blade, he had just honed it.
We speak of statutes.
Rel did not let the moment go where Var wanted it. He stepped forward, and his hand did not shake when he touched the tower's decoy bundle.
The statute exists,
he said,
to keep that from being opened by men with iron in their blood and poetry in their tongues. It exists to put such machines in rooms where the walls don't listen. Inside the tower, nothing sings. You can call that fear, or you can call it wisdom on a salary.
And who pays your salary?
Lyra murmured from where she stood in the aisle.
Those who are alive,
Rel said without looking at her. The mitre found some backbone under his jewelry.
Custodian,
he said, not kindly.
There will be no more last times. We do not want a lamps again. Captain, the tower will take the ...
His voice faltered briefly. Object. And we will write a statute to make sure we keep the key to the door they put it behind. That is my condition. Rel looked for a long second as if many teeth behind his face wished to argue. They did not get permission.
The tower can endure oversight,
he said.
So long as the oversight is not a man with a romantic scar and 2 loyal constables and a coal vault.
Var said nothing. Saying nothing is a kind of speech. Kerrick watched the faces. He was learning that rooms have moods the way weather does. The hall's mood now was like ice on riverstones, thin, slick, making balance a matter of art as much as intention. Men fell on days like this and always swore the rock had moved.
Then we concur,
the mitre said.
Captain, the city is grateful. Custodian, the city is expectant.
He raised the little mallet he used to pretend this chair was a court and not a throne.
Afternoon bell dismissed.
Which is how laws are made, by fear and a piece of wood. Var tied the straps again with one hand. He nodded to Dawn. The stone man bent and gathered the chain as if it were laundry. The tower adepts did the same to their decoy with the reverence of men carrying a saint they had carved themselves. Carrick did not see the signal that sparked the rest. He only felt the shape of air change and knew all at once that several men had stopped pretending to be part of the wall. The door that was only a wall in theory slammed. The curtain that was only a velvet habit fell. Something cut the light.
Down,
Lyra said, and Carrick would have moved even if the word had been whispered from another country. He folded, rolling to bring his spear across his chest. A dart stitched the air where his throat had just been. 3 men in charcoal who smelled like laundry and old prayers were in the gallery with short bows that pushed their string against the wood as if eager to leap. The council guards looked puzzled. Then 2 fell, very neatly, with their eyes still open, very confused that sleep could be so loud.
Alive!
Rel hissed to his men.
Preferably alive.
Preferably?
Lyra said, and laughed without humour. Dawn moved like a falling shelf. One of the bowmen discovered how narrow galleries are, and how unforgiving marble can be when asked to receive a body quickly. Uldren's knife went high, and then low and came back red twice. Var kept his shoulder against the trestles, arms tense, as if his bones were the only chains that mattered. Carrick thrust, taking a bowman through the meat of the upper arm, and then yanked the shaft free before the man could tie his blood to the spear and keep it. The 2 tower adepts had both hands on their decoy bundle, and for a moment Carrick thought they would seize the real thing in their panic. Rel's voice cracked once, just once, telling them not to be stupid when being stupid would feel very much like relief. The last bowman did not run. He dropped his bow and drew a knife for the work of being a man among men. His face had the bland peace of a clerk delivering a summons. He came at Var because that was the biggest problem available. Carrick's spear tip found the knife arm and pinned the wrist to the polished wood of the trestle. The man hissed, and then looked almost apologetic as he twisted and bled. Var did not strike him. Var pressed him backward with his body and his stare until the man did something he had not rehearsed. He stumbled. It was over in less than a minute. Violence often is, because bodies answer faster than minds. The mitre was on his feet with his little mallet raised as if the right noise would put the bones back inside men. Councillors babbled at one another, outraged at the hobby of mortality being practiced in their club. The balcony murmured like a beehive struck with a shoe. Rel stood very still, eyes on Var, then on the wrapped relic.
Someone,
he said,
told someone that this would be here.
Yes,
Var said. His coat was torn where a dart had been too honest to hide.
And someone got the wrong time.
Rel turned, slow as if under weight. His gaze found the mitre's secretary, the wisp of a man who had been everywhere and nowhere at once. The man looked as if he would like to be a pocket and have a hand slide over him and conceal him.
You will bring me your correspondence,
Rel said to him.
Custodian,
the secretary said thinly.
You have no right.
You will bring me your correspondence, Rel said again, and this time he put his city voice on. People obey the city voice because it is trained out of them to resist it. The secretary bowed. He bowed with a neatness that said he had been practicing his bow since childhood, so he could use it as an apology to crimes he had not yet committed. Var looked to Lyra. She flicked 2 fingers, a sign from their private liturgy. Smiler's truth stands.
Back to the yard,
Var said.
Now, before brave men become brave again.
He and Dawn carried the wrapped relic out as if it were a coffin, and they were unwilling pallbearers. Carrick walked backward in front of them, spear levelled, watching the faces. He saw several he would learn later. He saw one he knew already and wished he did not. The face of a man who had drunk with him when his stipend was copper and shared his bread because he remembered being young. That man looked away very carefully. Outside the day seemed too bright. Larkenfall's roofs hunched, listening. The bells of St. Ferin's tried to tell an hour but sounded like a man clearing his throat before a lie.
Eric?
Var said, not looking back.
When we cross the river, take the south stairs, then the alley with the shutters' painted eyes. If anyone follows us, turn and talk to them.
What do I say?
Carrick said. and hated his own youth for the question.
Say no,
Var said.
and mean it.
They walked quickly, but not as if chased. Running would put the wrong shape on the air. Better to be a part of the city's furniture, moving only because men move. They made it as far as the south stairs before the man with the 2 chains appeared. He stepped out from a doorway that had once been a cobbler's and now had the ambition to be a grave. He wore tower grey without a tower face. His hair was slicked flat. His smile was a pamphlet for obedience. In his left hand, a chain with a crossbar of polished oak hung, a magistrate's sign made flesh. In his right, another chain, identical.
Captain,
He said.
by order of... No.
Carrick said, stepping into his words and making them crash and spill. He set his spear tip against the man's breastbone, not meanly, just realistically.
I think you have the wrong hour and the wrong men.
The man's eyes bounced off the spear down to Dawn's hands on the pole. He licked his bottom lip very quickly, a gecko of nervousness flicking in and out.
By order.
He tried again. No, Carrick said, and pushed half an inch. It is surprising how informative half an inch can be to a man who has read laws more than he has read streets. Rel's shadow came up at a trot, breath measured. He lifted a hand and the man with the chains deferred, relief and anger in the tilt of his head.
Another time,
Rel said to him, to Carrick.
You will regret making enemies in houses without windows.
Carrick kept his spear where it was, and his voice as polite as a stamped letter.
I fear many things,
he said.
Rooms are not among them.
Rel looked at Var and found nothing to purchase there. He stepped back 2 paces and did not turn his back, because he had not lived this long by giving any man that favour. They crossed the river. The yard's door took them. The brick swallowed the thing again. Var leaned his forehead against the wall for a long second, palms flattened, as if the stone were a book and he were reading through his skin. Then he straightened, and his mouth was drawn into a line that would not change even if you told it jokes.
Edicts will come,
he said.
Summons, offers, threats dressed as offers. Lyra eat. Uldren, sleep in the chair with one eye open. Dorn, don't move. Carrick, walk me to Lady Syra.
Carrick blinked.
My lady?
Your lady,
Var said dryly.
the only person in this city with both money and a spine not welded to someone else's purse. I will tell her the truth before the tower tells her theirs.
He took his hat from a peg. It had a dent a lesser man would have ironed out. Var kept it. Men should have dents and know where they came from. As they opened the yard door, bells began to ring in different quarters, slightly out of time, unschooled choirs arguing about noon. Larkenfall listened with its cobbles. The city had taken a breath. The next would taste of iron. Lady Syra kept her house on the edge of Sightwood, where the hills pretended to become countryside before the city reminded them of their duties. Her gates were iron, but the pebbling of the paint told you she paid to keep them looking modest. Her hedge had the discipline of soldiers. The gravel did not dare make a sound when Var and Carrick walked it. A butler with a face that had never failed to remember a name met them and did not ask for cards.
Captain,
he said,
I have been told to let you through in all hours.
Someone wise told you,
Var said. They were shown into a library that believed books should have weight. The shelves were oak or something that had killed oak in its youth and taken its place. On the desk, 3 ledgers open to 3 different sums. On the mantel, a painting of an ancestor who had worn armour like a sin and teeth like an apology. Lady Syra rose from her chair. She wore black like some women wear perfume, not as a mourning but as a choice. The scar at her throat had faded to a signature. She had eyes that had drawn blood and then poured tea.
Captain,
she said.
I smelled smoke from the north and thought of you.
You will be thinking of the towers soon,
Var said.
And I wanted you to have something else to think of first.
Ah,
Syra said.
Truth. I have paid for that before.
She listened while Var told her the day. He told it plain. He did not embroider for effect. The truth does not need lace. When he was done, she poured a glass of water and handed it to Carrick, who had forgotten thirst.
The council will choose the tower because the tower lets them pretend they did not choose.
She said.
And you will choose to resist because you are made of a metal they do not mint anymore.
She looked at Kerrick.
And you will choose to follow him into stone rooms because boys believe in better until it kills the boys and makes men. I do not say this as an insult. I say it as an inventory.
Kerrick bowed his head, unsure whether to be grateful or ashamed.
Lady
Var said.
The tower may hold the weapon. It must not own it. I need witnesses who are not paid by statutes. People whose windows look onto streets and not ledger columns.
And if witnessing becomes a shape, the tower would rather not see?
Syra said mildly.
Then I will bring you teeth,
Var said. She laughed softly.
You went to their hall and asked men to look. That is the first time anyone has asked that of them this year.
She sipped her own water and made a face as if it were wine she had not ordered.
And now what? You cannot keep the thing forever. Your wall is stronger than your men. Your men will tire.
Somewhere there is a furnace ready to melt it,
Var said.
Or a throat to swallow it. The tower will argue for one, the choir for the other. The watch argues for neither.
And what do you argue for?
Syra said.
Time,
Var said, and the bleakness in the word made it a room with a chair and a lock.
Enough to find who brought it in, at whose whisper. Enough to start a fire under the right chair.
Syra circled the desk. Her hand, unadorned, strong as a hinge, rested briefly on Kerrick's shoulder.
Is he teaching you to count how many men in a room wish you dead?
She asked him.
He is,
Kerrick said.
Then learn quickly.
She turned to Var.
Done. I will watch. I will stand at your shoulder in rooms where shoulders matter.
She smiled. It was not kind, it was correct.
I will keep a carriage by the yard tonight. If the wall breaks, we will create a wall of our own.
Walls fall when you make them visible,
Var said.
Then we will look like wind,
Syra said. She returned to the desk and picked up a folded paper.
Custodian Rel asked me to dine,
she said, and her voice put moth holes in the invitation.
He will be disappointed. If the tower calls me uncooperative, I will be flattered. If the council notes I am distrustful, I will paste that line on my mirror and enjoy it mornings.
She held the paper toward the candle and watched it take.
I will say one more thing to you for free,
she said as if she charged for breath.
The city does not hate the tower. It hates being embarrassed. If you want the council to make the right choice, give them a worse enemy than fear.
Fear has no face,
Var said.
Tonight it will,
Syra said.
If I am any judge of this city's appetite.
Kerrick left the house with the shape of the library's light printed on his eyes. Var walked beside him in silence until they reached the outer gate. Then he said,
Your smiler?
2 chains.
Kerrick said.
1 smiling.
Var grunted a laugh that had forgotten the trick.
Then tonight we lock our door twice.
They turned right toward the yard and the work that waits under lamps. The river talked to itself in the culverts. Somewhere a street preacher argued that sin was cheaper in bulk. 2 boys made a fight look like an accident so the crowd would gather and their sisters could work the pockets. The city breathed again, and in the coal vault behind the yard's bricked lip something old and contemptuous listened to men with badges arrange their courage and called it names an animal would understand. It had been made to be hungry. It had learned patience the way fire learns it, one suppressed tongue at a time. It hummed briefly to itself. The brick warmed. Kerrick woke that night to a song in a dream that he could not remember when he rose, except that when he walked to the wall and put his hand flat on the mortar, the stone under his palm was warmer than his own blood. Outside, the wind shifted. It did not bring the smell of the rain. It brought the smell of tinder. And somewhere in Larkenfall, a man with a city signet turned his ring so the seal faced inward and closed his hand and decided he had been brave enough for one day. The hollow choir began to gather in a cellar where the ceiling was low and the floor kept secrets out of courtesy. They were not done singing, neither was the tower, neither, God help them all, was the watch. The yard did not sleep so much as simmer. Lamps burned low, wicks trimmed to points. Uldren dozed in the chair with one eye and half a lung, waking every few breaths to listen to the bricks breathe. Dawn sat in the armoury like a statue a mason had forgotten to finish, thumbs hooked in his belt, head tilted to catch the language of timbers. Lyra turned pages without seeing words, the smiler's vial cool against her ribs. Carrick paced the corridor between the cells and the coal vault, counting steps, then recounting to shame the creak out of the floorboards. Var made his rounds like a wind with boots on, touching doorframes, tapping lintels, setting iron on sill and hinge, the way a cook salts a pot without thinking. Outside, the weather had sharpened. A knife could have learned angles from the wind's edge. Just after second candle, the bell in Carrick's blood rang. He stopped in the corridor, breath paused, body remembering fields at night, remembering foxes that did not exist until they did. The air ahead of him was wrong by a hair, not colder, thinner. He took 2 steps backward, very slowly, and gently rattled the ring of keys on his belt. Lyra materialized out of a shadow's habit.
Where?
The window over the back staircase.
Carrick whispered.
It was breathing with the house. Now it's holding its breath.
She tilted her head, listening not with ears but with the parts of her face that had learned to read rooms.
2,
she said.
maybe 3. Whoever taught them liked them too much. They move like they think they're invisible.
Do they want the brick?
Carrick said.
Or the paper that says who owns the brick.
Lyra said. She slid off her boots and set them beside a chair as neatly as a prayer. Uldren's one open eye had been watching them the whole time. He didn't sit up. He just let his hand fall off the arm of the chair and land on the cudgel that lived there.
Doors?
He said.
Doors lie,
Lyra said.
Windows flirt. Cellars confess.
Dawn stood and the floor forgave him.
I will be a door,
he said, and went to stand in the corridor outside the coal vault with his hands clasped, as if waiting for a sermon. Var didn't raise his voice.
No steal unless you have to,
he said.
And if you have to, do it clean.
Carrick took the back stairs 2 at a time, then forced himself to come back down one, and place his foot where the squeak wasn't. He heard the brush of rope against stone. He heard his own heart inform him of his mistakes. He rounded the post and met the first man at face height. The man had a scarf tied under his eyes, and a knife as short and stupid as a boast. Carrick let his weight fall backward and his spear come up. The tip kissed the intruder's teeth and tapped once. It's remarkable how persuasive a new chip in a front tooth can be when explaining policy. The man swallowed the cry that wanted to be born and leapt sideways to find a shadow that would sponsor him. The second man came low. Lyra's hand found his wrist in the dark and reminded it what wrists are for. His knife clanged twice on the stair and went hunting for the corner like a rat.
Third?
Carrick breathed. Lyra didn't answer. The third had learned silence from her and paid for the lesson in scars. He came out of the stairwell like river mud and went past Carrick, not at him, at the corridor at dawn. Lyra's heel went into the third man's knee. It should have folded. It did not. His joint had been replaced with stubbornness. He rolled, came up on his knuckles, and blew powder straight into her face from a tube he had palmed. Lyra took the breath by instinct. It is hard not to. She bared her teeth in rage at herself and tried to spit the powder out, but powders are cowards and cling. Her eyes watered. The world fuzzed.
Carrick,
she said. The name did not sound like his name. It sounded like a word for a thing you could put between the people you love and the knife you hate. He moved without thinking, and that was the right way. His spear butted the third man's temple, not to smash, to reset his hunger. The man staggered, and then became 3 men in Carrick's sight as the powder drift reached him, tasted of crushed mint gone wrong, tasted of lemon and copper.
Don't breathe it,
Uldren said from the stair. useless instruction, and then proved he had been born in a better story by spitting straight into the third man's eyes. The powder made ugly words of the man's blink. Lyra's knife did the punctuation, a slice along the cheek, not deep, a signature to be redeemed later.
You have to admire the craft.
Uldren panted.
They found a way to make Flower angry.
Later,
Var said, and wasn't in the corridor at all. He had ghost's privilege, or else the house knew a captain and stepped him where he needed to be.
Dorn?
The answer came back in the sound brick makes when it dislikes what touches it. Then in the sound a man makes when he thinks he has seen a brick move by itself. Carrick ran. He left Lyra with Uldren because he trusted both more than he trusted most gods. He hit the corridor and his boots remembered old mud and did not skid. Dawn was planted before the coal vault like an altar. 3 more men had appeared, not the first 2, not of their school. These were grey, proper, stitched with a tailor's forgiving needle. Their faces were blank the way a coin's face is blank until you bite it. 2 had truncheons bound in leather to soften the sin. The third had parchment and a seal and a chain.
By order,
the third began. Carrick put the spear edge into his words.
No,
he said.
We told you.
You misunderstand,
the man said, and this close Carrick could smell tower ink on him, that bitter sour used by clerks who write numbers that won't behave.
The council has affixed its will. The mitre ring is on the wax. This vault is no longer your house. It is a measure under custody.
Var arrived behind Carrick without hurry. He did not look at the paper.
If the council wants our wall,
he said,
it can come carry it. You are a clerk, with a chain and a brave shift. You are not the city.
The city is the statute,
the man said. But the argument was costing him his courage letter by letter.
Then I suppose we are illiterate?
Var said. The 2 with the truncheons moved. Dawn's forearm adjusted their expectations about motion and pain. Carrick caught the edge of a leather strap on his cheek, felt skin open and air come in with the astonishment of a guest who had not been expected. His spear butt found a knee. The knee spoke a language it had learned from brick and fell. The clerk didn't run. He planted himself, very noble, very doomed, and tried to push past Dawn with the paper like a priest driving away wolves with a prayer. Dawn's hand closed on the middle of the parchment. Paper tears in a surprising number of ways. This tore like a promise.
Go back,
Var said.
Tell your master we'll bring the law a table and let it eat.
The clerk shook. He tried to become contempt. He wasn't heavy enough.
You have made an enemy you cannot name,
he whispered to Carrick because he could not bear to aim at Var and miss.
I have practice,
Carrick said. He had blood in one eye and it made the clerk look like 2 men agreeing with each other. They pushed the tower men out and barred the door again, stacking iron in front of it the way a desperate mind stacks reasons. Silence tried to come back and found the house hostile to it. Lyra wiped her eyes with water and salt and hate and made them work. She tapped Carrick's cheek and hissed when her fingers came away red.
You'll have a white line,
she said.
Something to remember why you don't like Flower.
Flower remembers me already,
Carrick said, and then swayed because blood loss is democratic and votes every time. Var bound the cut with linen as if he'd been a farmhand once, and maybe he had been. Var was the sort of man who'd been everything that could hurt a man, and had counted the cost and stayed. He tied a knot that lay flat.
First price,
he said simply. Carrick blinked.
It feels small.
It is,
Var said.
That is why it's dangerous. Small prices teach you to pay. Big prices take you because you have learned how.
Uldren swore softly in a language of gamblers and small gods.
We'll have a larger bill by dawn,
he said.
You hear how the city is arguing with itself? Every alley is practicing a rumor.
Lady Sira will bring a carriage,
Lyra said.
If we need to run.
Var looked at the brick behind the brick.
We do not run. We choose ground.
He chose the roof. They hauled bedding and a kettle up the stairs to the flat above the yard and made a bivouac beneath the cold stars. Var liked roofs. They gave you a horizon wide enough to see your mistakes coming. Dawn sat on the ridge with his feet braced and the chimney at his back. Uldren brewed a drink with too much bitter in it and made everyone take a mouth. Lyra blade-checked, rubbing her steel on leather with short, irritated strokes. Carrick lay back against the lead and let his breath make a cloud that looked like a horse falling apart. The cut on his cheek pulsed with his heartbeat, a second mouth making a second story of his face.
Hold,
Var said, not to anyone or to everyone. It sounded like an order to the night. Larkenfall moved under them. Fires wrote little meanings in high places. Somewhere a woman laughed and made two men think they were heroes. Somewhere a boy tried to steal a loaf and discovered the bread bit back with teeth called law. The river turned in its sleep and showed a pale belly. Just before dawn, the hollow choir sang. It came up from the street like fog rolling uphill. It had the shape of that circle in the House of Looking and the smell of bone powder. It delighted in a key that did not fit any human lock. It made the hair rise on the neck. It made the brick under Carrick's palm answer once, as if giving a password, as if saying present. Uldren was on his feet with a curse already half spoken. Lyra's knife was out and then back because knives are inappropriate for songs and hate the insult. Dawn's head turned toward the gate. The singers rounded the corner in ones and twos. They didn't wear robes, they wore work. A smith with a leather apron, a baker's boy with flour honest on his nose, a seamstress, pins still stuck in the shoulder of her smock, a clerk, not the one whose paper had died, with ink on his fingers. Their eyes were wrong and yet terribly sincere. They stopped in the street outside the yard and faced the door as if it were an altar. Their leader, if the word applies, if any word does, raised empty hands.
By gift,
he said.
by offering.
No,
Var said from the roof edge. The leader smiled up into the dim. It was the smile of a man looking at rain coming to a field and not at a flood coming to a house.
You cannot hold hunger.
He said.
You can only choose what feeds it. Give us the bone and we will be happy with its shadow.
shadows are where men hide knives,
Lyra said.
Then bring yours.
The man said mildly. He stepped forward. Dawn dropped from the ridge like a closing door. The man stopped with his toes on Dawn's boots and tried to move his foot, and found the ground uninterested.
Listen,
He said to Dawn very quietly.
it speaks to you. You are stone. It likes stone. It will make you more of yourself. It will make you weight enough to sink ships with your little hands.
Dawn looked down at the man as if he were a tool left in rain.
I'm already myself,
he said, and turned the man around by the shoulder and walked him back into the street like a father removing a child from a pond. The choir did not argue. It sang again, not louder, deeper. Carrick felt it in his teeth. He felt one of his molars answer, a thin, ashamed ache.
Enough,
Var said, and the word had nails in it.
We are not a church. We do not take offerings before dawn.
The smith looked up at him.
You can stand between hunger and what it wants for a day.
He said.
Maybe a week. It will go around you. It knows the alleys. It has old maps. You cannot outlaw thirst.
You outlaw murder and men still do it,
Var said.
We write the law anyway. It's practice.
The choir's leader bowed a fraction too deep.
We will come to your practice.
He said.
And you will come to ours.
He smiled down the line of his people and nudged the air gently, and like that they were gone, dispersing exactly as water disperses when a hand opens in it.
Fools,
Uldren said too loudly. It was a curse and a prayer.
Not fool,
Var said.
Fools we can catch. These are believers. They wear their chains happily.
Lyra exhaled and let the knife rest.
The city will give us a quiet day to make up for that,
she said. The city did not. The summons came at noon in the mouth of a boy who had learned to talk fast and stop faster. He stood in the yard doorway with his cap in his hands and the council's seal in his eyes.
Captain,
he said,
you are commanded to attend at once. There were events at the prison, and at the Mitres house, and at St. Farron's.
Which prison?
Var said. The boy winced.
All of them.
What events?
Aldrin said.
They're saying the door's open.
The boy said.
They're saying the bolts melted down their length. They're saying some of the locks turned around on their own and refused to be locks anymore.
St. Farron's,
Lyra said.
They're saying the bell tower swallowed a man.
The boy said.
He went up the steps and didn't come down. The clerks put paper over the door and the door ate the paper.
And the mitre?
Var asked, not because he cared about the man, but because the city did. The boy swallowed and looked very tired all of a sudden.
They're saying he left his house by the front door.
He said.
They're saying he walked across the green. They're saying a shadow went over him like a kite, only there was no kite, and he fell down. They're saying there's a circle of ash that the wind won't touch.
Who is saying all this?
Aldrin said.
Everyone,
the boy whispered. The yard became smaller around them. The brick in the wall behind the brick in the wall sat very quietly and warmed the air by half a breath. Var took his hat. He did not look at the coal vault when he passed it. He had the restraint of men who have kept the door closed while friends shouted on the other side.
Carrick, with me,
he said.
Lyra, find the Smiler and tell her what the wind won't carry. Aldrin, write. Write clean. Write like you'll show your page to a god who cares about script. Dorn --
Door,
Dawn said.
Door,
Var agreed. They stepped into daylight that had regrets on it. The ward looked like a pot left on a stove and forgotten. People moved with their heads ahead of their bodies. Words had edges they normally didn't wear. At the top of the south stairs, Custodian Rel waited. He had no clerk with him this time and no chain. He had a face that had learned how to hold two truths at once and not let either spill.
Captain,
he said.
Custodian,
Var said. Rel looked at the city, not at Var.
Old machines are moving in their sleep,
he said.
We damped the ones we knew. We forgot some. That is on us. The tower will shut them again if the council lets us move our hands without 3 signatures for each finger.
He turned his head. The thing you keep warms the map.
It is
not doing. It is being. It is enough.
You came to say, please,
Var said.
And please do not put a man under a boot of paper.
Rel's lips made a flat line.
I came to say your wall is becoming a target with a city around it,
he said.
Tonight 12 men will try the brick. Tomorrow 20. By next week you will kill a boy whose only sin was being brave with the wrong friends.
Carrick looked down instinctively and saw his own boots.
Bring it to the tower,
Rel said.
Stand in the room while we lock it. Hold the key if you must, but bring it. I don't like the shape of noon.
Neither do I,
Var said.
But I dislike more the shape of your rooms.
Rel's mouth twitched. It could have been pain. It could have been respect.
Then by tonight you will be a legend,
he said.
I hope you survive being one.
He walked away, which is the hardest thing for a man who prefers to command. Carrick touched the bandage on his cheek as if to confirm his face was still his.
Captain,
he said very low, a boy in a confession.
Yes?
I killed a man last night,
Carrick said. He hadn't. Quite. He had broken an arm that would not move right again. He had made a head hit a rail with a sound that might have become a grave later, but truth unlearned is a club.
And I knew him. From Three Goose Alley. He used to give me ends of rope. He helped me climb.
He pressed his palm against the cut.
I could have turned the spear. I didn't. And part of me is proud.
Var didn't look at him.
Men die of pride,
he said.
Men also live on it. You will have to choose which kind you eat, and you will have to do it every day. It does not get easier. You just get used to the wait.
They walked on toward the council green, where a circle of ash darkened grass that had never dared to be tall. People stood around it and made the noises people make when they want to be good at being witnesses. The wind tried to move the ash. It did not. Carrick felt the cut on his cheek itch. There are many kinds of hunger. Some learn the face of a young watchman and practice it in mirrors. He was very much afraid that he would get good at this. He hoped, very quietly, that he would not. Somewhere behind them in the yard stone warmed, somewhere ahead of them in the hall paper dried. Between those two places men with badges walked, and somewhere above all of them hunger learned their names. To be continued.